panel is compelling.
It's Terminator.
It's that X-Force cover I love. The Mark Vasella close-up.
And like, look at his hair. It's you invert it and it's Cable. Like look in the cover. Like, you know how it was like white with the black stripes?
It's really Cable-esque on the cover. It has that weird, I don't know what that's called. It's not a widow's peak, but it's where your receding hairline leaves that front down.
Yeah, no, that's a widow's peak.
I just think of the widow's peak as just a point into the... Are we ready to record? Is that everything set up then?
Yeah, pretty much. I just gotta add it to the tube. I just gotta add it to the Patreon. It's lagging a tiny bit.
I think I should probably raise this camera. It's really close.
Yeah, it just it doesn't take that long.
Do you use your charger door, this cable?
No.
I'm gonna set it on your TV.
Alright, I just gotta email it.
That's a good bit of mail, man. I wonder what these priority boxes are.
It's that Darren Mauer dude.
Yeah.
Just sent it some of his collection.
I like this oversized line art. It surprises me how different it looks from the color. I wonder if they beef up the lines a little bit.
All right.
Did you ever see the thing somebody circulated? It was like a DC office directory from, I don't know, late 90s. And nobody is there anymore.
Really?
Yeah. And I kind of feel that way about all the editors in comics. I think almost all of them. They just cycle out.
What's going on, friends? All right, everybody's starting to show up. Yeah, we're going to take a look at the king size big guy and Rusty the Boy Robot. We just got done with a Bill Griffith shoot interview, which was a fantastic conversation. I'll just let everybody know what that was. Great conversation, man.
Yeah, I think everybody's going to love it.
We hit the underground stuff, we hit the strip stuff, we hit it all. Is that your water right there?
Yeah.
Okay, give me 1 second.
Yeah, I don't know how familiar you guys are with Bill Griffith's career, but like, besides doing a daily strip, he's done 3, 200-page graphic novels in the last 10 years. The most recent one is that Ernie Bushmiller biography from last year, and I love it. It's really, if you're even a little bit of a Nancy fan, like, highly recommend it. It's really cool as a biography because part of it is biography of Bushmiller, cartoonist, and biography's a cartoonist. That's about all you need to do for me to be interested. And then there's a reprint of a bunch of Nancy strips in the comic. So it's also like Nancy strips, like how many of those are out there? I don't know if Fantagraphics is going to print any more Nancy or not.
I don't think so.
They should do like...
The best of?
Yeah, jump ahead, like jump to the 60s or something like that.
I think they learned that lesson, man. That's what they because the Carl Barks stuff comes after that, and that's precisely what they did. They still haven't published the first 5 Carl Barkses.
And then like the last third, and I don't mean like the way the book is made up because it's all intermingled, but the last third is like Griffith, being Griffith the cartoonist, the critic, the character within the story. It's fantastic as a biography. I think it's really effective, and man, his page layouts are phenomenal too. It doesn't make sense that his page layouts are so good.
Griffey?
Yeah, because like if you're doing a daily strip for decades,
right?
Where are you learning page layouts?
He was doing pages for decades.
Yeah, I guess.
They're
exceptional.
Here's the other thing too, man. Like, and we didn't quite go there, but shit. What was I gonna say? I just lost that train of thought, man. He doesn't come from comics. Like, we touch on it a little bit, but he was really gung-ho about fine arts and left comics away. Like, since he was a kid, he left but he read all the good stuff. Little Lulu, all of that shit. There was just no vector in his, like, Elise Clowes is like, well, there could have been National Lampoon or something. There was zero until Crumb came along. So I wanted to sort of talk to him about that a little bit, because it's like you get to bring in so much more into the culture of comics because you're not fucking bound by long boxes full of shit.
So yeah, great conversation. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. And the other thing is, and we don't talk about this much on the interview, but the dude's like 79 and sharp as a tack. I was telling Ed off air, like, my father and father-in-law are both in their mid-70s, and I mean, he'd be running circles around them, just his mental faculties. So I found that part just interesting as a, general interest kind of thing, just talking to a guy who seems to be at the top of his game almost 80 years in. As I age, that becomes more and more of an impressive thing. Maybe as my relatives age, that becomes more and more of an impressive accomplishment.
It's you just realize like I don't know what. Well, I guess your pops did labor and stuff.
Yeah,
but
he's still in pretty good shape too. But
just doing labor, man, like you're not required to fucking use the brain cells in the same way.
That's the thing. It's a lack of curiosity or something,
That's a huge part.
You got to keep that sharp. And Griffith, man, sharp. Fun talking with him.
All right, the gang's all here.
Lock those.
Ready when you are, Jimmy.
Yep. Hello and welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. Hello and welcome to your favorite YouTube channel, Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Jim Rugg.
I'm Ed Piskor.
And before we dive into King Size Big Guy and Rusty the Boy Robot, I want to welcome first-timers and let them know we are a daily comic book YouTube channel with over 1,600 videos in our back catalog, and you can search for those by title of your favorite comics or your favorite creators on the Cartoonist Kayfabe YouTube homepage. I also want to let everybody know that we have a Cartoonist Kayfabe Patreon, and if you are a King Kayfaber, that's our top level, you are actually sitting in on the recording sessions. It's becoming one of my favorite features of Cartoonist Kayfabe, this live studio audience, and you get probably about an extra episode's worth of material across the recording sessions each week, as well as access to all of the videos first, which will give you a leg up on the Kayfabe effect. Whenever we cover a book you want, you'll be the first one to track it down before the prices go up or the copies disappear.
I might even say that it's the King Kayfabers who put us onto the King Size Big Guy, because we knew that the big hard-boiled was a thing. We just never had it, and we did a video on Big Damn Hard Boiled. So look at that tandem, right?
Yeah, what a sight.
Those are two sexy books to have.
Twin towers right there.
So once we got our hands on that, from just a Kayfaber hooked it up, it was the King Kayfabers who were like, yo, there's a Big Guy Rusty one too. And I'm like, oh yeah, let me hop on eBay real quick. So like, we got our shit.
I feel like the King Kayfabers could be giving and taking away, as they may be the first ones pulling these off of eBay and secondary markets. Because I also have looked for these. Not easy to find these books. I used to see one on the shelf I think it was at Phantom, and once they disappeared, it seemed like the prices really skyrocketed. But as you say, Ed, we started with Big Damn Hard Boiled. I was so impressed by that I got pretty eager to see this one.
Absolutely. You see this stuff? He uses microns, and he's able to get a thick and thin with his microns. He gets so much movement out of these semi-rigid tools, and I think we're going to see a lot of that in here.
It's really impressive, like when you see the line actually taper, to a point, and yet it's that heavy of a line.
Yeah.
It's kind of shocking to get that range out of a micron.
Yeah, there is the brush pen one that he will use also.
So,
this is the way to look at his work.
Oh, man, definitely. And one of the things that stood out to me whenever I started looking at the Big Damn Hard Boiled, it almost looks like different art. It's very revelatory to me to see it at this size.
Yeah.
And also without color, without words, you just really can fixate on the magic that Jeff Darrow brings to these pages.
Absolutely, man. Like as a drawer, I mean, second to none. He worked at the Quaker Oats factory and cites that with just his sort of observational ability to draw kind of workable looking machinery and stuff.
I think we also say this about various artists is you think of what it takes to draw a control panel versus what it takes to draw some sort of organic mass coming to life and forming a monster. It's two different skill sets.
This is something he does often, and it's really such a strong note, and something that I've been making note of a lot lately is, it's a static art form. It's drawings on paper. So at any opportunity for him to convey motion with liquid, he will take that opportunity.
That's interesting. That's a good note. I was admiring like the directional devices, right? We get to the end of this panel, two sets of eyes guiding us to the next page. And the architecture, man. Look at these city details. Imagine drawing all of that.
Well, sort of architecturally sound, well measured out. Like I mean, it's that obsessive down to like the millimeters.
Yeah. It's almost the
letter.
Alcoa building downtown.
Yeah.
Those windows, very distinct. Yeah, and then chaos on the ground, the carnage. Much harder to draw than you think. And you can actually see the tiny little bodies on here. There must be 50 figures coming out of this tower.
There's wind is blowing a certain direction, and you really feel the power of that. And
it's impressive.
It's all line. It's not any kind of splatter or brushwork that can create an expressive thing. It's like, no, these are deliberate lines that he put on paper. And keep in mind, he put these lines down twice because there's a pencil version of all these pages.
Yeah, that's wild.
He uses this weird, I don't know about on Big Guy, but on Hard Boiled, I saw an original Hard Boiled page when we were in Tokyo. This one guy, Yoshi, has it. And Jeff uses, he learned it from Mobius. It was like this, it's thicker than vellum. It's like a plastic kind of paper. It's almost like you can't even rip it, almost like a Tyvek type shit. But he inked on top of that stuff so that you could see the pencil work through it. It always stands out whenever Jeff decides to put some black on the page.
It's true. I was admiring how much this is like your intestines,
Yeah,
as they're being swallowed.
Yeah, I was thinking like a brain.
Yes. Yeah, great textures. It's mind-blowing seeing this stuff at this scale and just seeing how many different textures he can bring into pretty simple line art.
And you can't take this stuff for granted. Like, you look at it just as a form of entertainment and you get dazzled, but as an artist, it's like we're seeing these cars all askew, but within the same kind of horizon and stuff, the same sort of picture plane, but turned around at all angles. It's hard to draw one car.
Yeah, you got that right. Look, here's more of your liquid coming out and splashing.
Reasonably subdued version.
Yeah.
That one, man. It's it's more viscous. It's a what is that? A Newtonian liquid, like the ones that you if you punch it, you can't get submerged.
It's also wild seeing them at this size because I feel like I take in each panel rather than the page.
Well, that's what it is. This is a celebration of artwork rather than if you want to read a comic, go read the comic.
But you see the variety. I notice whenever I read a comic, in some ways it bleeds together, these panels.
As it should.
Fair. But whenever you see it in this format, I just am blown away by the variety that he actually brings. And even things like the texture on the skin.
Right.
You know, the claws are different than the skin. The forearm is different than the interior part of the arms.
And by the way, like, he's known for having so much volume of line, density of line. But, like, his density of, like, the scaly textures and stuff, it's different than the way, like, Art Adams would do something, like, with a scaly texture. Like, he could have gone so much more, but like he knows where to kind of like stop it.
Mm-hmm.
To be a fly on the wall inside of the brain would be an interesting thing, because there's so many decisions being made that you just don't know.
And of course, Jeff, we know, has spent quite a bit of time in Japan, and you get to see that in all the little advertising details and background details that adorn anytime you see a close up of the city. There'll be those kinds of details.
Mm-hmm. He was taking pics, man, when we were out there.
How about this is kind of what you said about the cars earlier, but putting gunships on top of that dense city.
Yeah, unbelievable.
And there's a use of black that you don't see that often.
Yeah, framing a super close-up.
I'm surprised that he doesn't employ black more, because it is very effective as, I could see it as being a foreground or a background object.
I remember when we did the review of our comic and just putting our heads super close to the thing, and realize, like, no, he redraws. Like, this is not photoshopping the background. Like, he redraws each of those panels. Now, in pencil, maybe, well, I'm not going to even take that away from him because he seems like that obsessive, but in animation, you could draw it once, draw this one, and then just keep, light boxing that. But I don't know that he did that. He seems like a guy that would, like, redraw a thing all a million times.
I love this kind of thing. We have helicopters blowing up and attacking. We have cars being slung around. To me, this is the kind of stuff I would try to draw as a kid.
Right.
Obviously, it didn't look like this, but it feels like you just have almost like a play set worth of action going on in that panel.
Yeah, and that's how he rules, Like it's that thing where he gained the facility to be able to draw. So why not draw that fun, whimsical shit? Monsters, guns, violence, big cities.
Very hard to draw something like this, a gun turret pointed at you.
Right, because, like,
makes it look easy.
You get wrong any one of those pieces and you destroy the cylinder. And it's easy to destroy that cylinder.
And we talked to Jeff a little bit about this in one of our interviews with him. This was really done like Marvel style. So this is Jeff doing the storytelling. What you see here is really him writing this.
Look at him showing off too, like having a curved building. Like, you could have just been that. I've seen Eric Larson do that, but nah, man, he's going to add a little taper to it.
He must rule these in pencil.
Yeah, I think so.
And then, because if you look close, especially at this scale, you can see that those are actually free-handed lines.
Yeah, and he talked about his dad built him like a sort of apparatus for his big giant drafting table to be able to put super far off vanishing points and things.
I also wonder if you sit down to a project like this and you start to think like, okay, I can do a close-up of each part of the monster. The tail coming through the street, the aftermath of the carnage.
He's
very effective. Yeah,
he's
very
deep.
Thoughtful as an artist. And I guess if you're drawing at this level of detail, there's probably a lot of time with the head down drawing and lost to your thoughts.
There's some interesting, like, when you have, spare lines within the smoke, that suggests color and translucency and stuff. So, like, he's thinking about a lot of stuff as he's putting his work together. And you were seeing some thin lines, man. Like, I mean, it almost like, 0.005 micron lines.
Yeah, it's wild the amount of tiny, like dots from that 0.005 micron on some of these teeth.
Yeah.
On the tongue. You just wonder, like, how do you know when you're done with one of these pages?
Yeah.
I guess you get to the 0.005 micron, and that's it. Once you've used that, where else can you go? Unless you go digital that you can zoom in on it, that's going to be the end. Rusty not doing too well.
Yeah.
Slap between the hands like you might a mosquito. That's really great perspective use too. Really drawing you into the drawing.
And it all feels accurate.
It sure does. I wonder what his morgue file is like.
Yeah. Like, once again, when we were out there, he was taking photos. Like, he would go sort of disappear. and go take photos around the neighborhood. But then also, like, while we're digging for comics and shit, he's grabbing like really ornate, like gashapon little sculptural like turtles and birds and stuff, like stuff that looks really kind of accurate, stuff that he could hold in a 3D. So that studio of his, man, it's not all just comics. He's definitely got a lot of stuff. There it is, dude, turning on.
Makes me think now, is his use of black a narrative thing? We've seen like 3 examples of it, I think, so far in this flip through.
What is the thing that you would want to draw the least, man? How about a battleship, like an aircraft carrier?
Do you think this is an homage to The Dark Knight Returns? That famous cockpit?
I mean, now that you say it,
it's kind of the same. In my head, at least, it's a pretty similar composition. That would make sense. Working with Frank Miller, why not throw something in there like that?
Yeah.
This ship looks really cool too, both in profile and this way, like the cross section.
And also just like the curves and all that. It's evocative of like the futurist, like 1950s Cadillacs and like that. So how do you do that? How do you create something brand new that has that vibe of, you know, the 1950s?
Yeah, that's such a neat like future, that clean version. Man, and it's just all comes together here. You know, I think of talking to him about Akira, and you can see the love of Akira in an illustration like this.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Even with that page that you suggest could be like a Dark Knight Returns thing, just knowing Jeff, there might be some crazy manga influence, like reference or anime.
This is another example of like how do you show motion?
Mm-hmm. And you know, that's some of that's bodies.
Yes.
A lot of that is bodies, and they're fully drawn, and they're like proportionally correct.
Right.
You know, like the 6 heads tall guys and 11 heads tall guys, like all of that kind of shit.
That's awesome. Kind of disturbing, but super awesome.
I want to compare eyeglass prescriptions with Uncle Jeff, man, because like mine are pretty heinous, and I just wonder how his compare.
So iconic.
Yeah, great perspective on that. That's a 3-point perspective with a vanishing point way up there. Once again, the cylinders of those missiles, you could fuck that up. See, with the clear line, there's no place to hide. There is no when in doubt, black it out, right? So he has to get it all right, and I think that's a personal challenge that he puts on himself when he's doing this work. You know, like if he's going to draw something, he's going to get it correct.
It also feels very funny, right? Big guy's throwing these missiles. The best way to deliver these missiles, he's throwing them into his nose, and the building windows become speed lines.
Right.
It's such an interesting page. You know, in contrast to the organic shape of the monster
Totally.
in the foreground.
Like, check out this perspective on the 2 missiles, right? And it is in perfect sync with the perspective of that jaw. You could fuck that up.
Oh yeah. Yeah, very easily. That's very hard to pull off. But that perfect perspective is on display. Like, he does like cursive neon signs on the side of some of these buildings in perspective.
Great letterer, incredible letterer, and speaking to the observational ability, like we've seen this, like where the explosion happens here and it's kind of fallen off there, but you don't often see people draw that.
It's really beautiful. I slept on this work when it was first published. I felt like, it's kind of aimed at kids, and you know, didn't even buy it right away. How stupid. The
lines are so thin here that even in the reproduction on this size paper, they don't show up that well. Or maybe they do. Maybe they're that thin.
It makes me curious to look at the colored printed piece, because I
that
wouldn't be surprised
up, right?
if you don't even see those.
Right. All different monsters and stuff.
Yeah, those monsters have been fun, because you'll see them sometimes like following the big monster in earlier panels, and it's so interesting, and some of them are a little bit goofy. I feel like, I've heard Jeff use the word goofy, and I feel like you'll see that in some of these characters. Some will be like 3-eyed monsters. It does seem like he's having fun.
Oh, totally.
It definitely comes across. And it also shades of some of the Shaolin cowboy fight scenes that we have seen since then.
Having these... Is this speed lines?
Yeah.
Is this speed line? That is like the line clear speed line. The Just Swart or the Hergé speed line would be just that single stroke. I remember it from in Understanding Comics. whenever Scott McCloud is talking about like how manga works and the speed lines of that, and then they show Kirby stuff where it's just the kind of like jagged marks from out wide, and then they show the European version, and it was just that one single swoop line.
This is amazing. It's choreographing this using this car as like a battering ram, and he's swinging it like around and back and forth across these multiple panels. That's amazing. Again, though, those Shaolin cowboy fight scenes, that's one of the really impressive things is how well choreographed they are, even though it's so busy with characters.
I talk about as you build your career, you got to develop the patience muscles to just get the work done, get a complete story done, finish something. And you look at something like this, that requires ultimate patience, total patience.
How much time is on this page?
Here's the thing, Jimmy. Because we've known Jeff for 3 years at this point, talk to him regularly, right? I will get a text of pencils at the beginning of my day, and that motherfucker will ink a page in that day. So he ain't playing on the phone. You know what I mean? He's working. He might take breaks to hit the bathroom and change a fucking Shaw Brothers DVD or something, man. But he's sitting down and he's grinding.
It's just hard to imagine. It's just, even just the glass shattering out of that window, I feel like would take me, that'd be a morning.
Because he pencils that too, man.
That's the part that's surprising is I've seen it, we've seen his pencils, they've done some reproduction of those pencils. There's not a shortcut. There's not a time saver somewhere. It's not like, put the X here and that means, window glass.
I think they're doing a Shaolin Cowboy comic, like from the new one, that's basically to this scale, but they're going to allow the color to be in there. I think he wants to show off the art and show off the Dave Stewart colors that are like underneath the balloons and stuff. But then I think they're doing it might be a pencil book that's artist edition size of that new Shaolin.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I can't wait for that. I'm sure we'll be looking at that on the channel whenever it gets here.
Yeah, might even need to get a new apparatus too.
We'll have to go to the very top shelf.
You know what?
Camera
my new phone, it has that like you could zoom out one extra bit, and we might have to actually employ that feature.
Great with scale, and there's one of these character, the neon letters in perspective.
And what is that? The yen? Like you see that on. I think that might be like how much. No, it's not the yen sign, but it's like how much stuff costs. Because you'll see the number after that.
Yeah, I have such mixed feelings on whether this stuff's inspiring or discouraging looking at it.
It's super inspiring, man. Like it's always, to me, the thoughts are like, how can you do more? Like how, like, and you know what? Even just hanging out with Jeff, because like I've done 2 conventions with him where I'm like essentially table mates, and it makes me so happy to be humbled next to him, because he's got amazing masterpiece works like Hard Boiled and stuff, and to see people's response to that, and to be kind of, because like usually when we're doing our thing, it's like we're usually the bells of the ball. So I'm just like super inspired by that dude.
Yeah, going back to the mechanical stuff that you were talking about earlier, whenever you see these pages of just like the mechanical stuff, it's such a shift in terms of your head compared to like this. You know, like totally. Organic debris coming down versus like, let's see the inside of how this arm might work.
Go back one just real quick, because like this is that fight where it starts here and Big Guy is literally getting tangled up in the wires, so it's making him kind of like bounce around along all those wires. That's what I'm talking about, the level of thought that he puts into this work. It always for a purpose.
I feel like a book like this, it's almost like whenever they would reprint like Crazy Cat or something, and it's like, read 3 of those. You're not going to sit down and read half the book in one sitting.
Right.
And I kind of feel like that's the way to consume this. Like, just study this page for like 20 minutes. Right? Because again, how much time goes into the thinking of it? I feel like he starts thinking about this page somewhere around page 3. It's almost like it's living with him over the process of making this.
Yeah, maybe.
I always love this too, where he's using this train as like a chain, a weapon of some sort. A
dog collar match.
You know, it reminds me of like almost just coming up with this concept of like, okay, wire them up to this commuter train. It's a great way to show off your depth. And then one thing Jeff does really well is not repeating things. So I pointed out whenever we were looking at the front of these lit up letters, let's see them from above and behind now.
Unbelievable.
You could make 3D models out of these scenes.
Yeah, it's all sturdy. And then look at that choice though, dude. It's outer space, no black. Let the colorist handle that.
I'm not gonna lie, I think that black would be killer. You know, as like your outer space up there. I could see that really popping. Man, he looks cool there with one arm ripped off.
Right.
All the guts hanging out, all the wires. And they give him Rusty as like, have Rusty.
Yeah, just take him, man. He's a little nuisance.
Super cool. Like seeing him do these kind of play with the border a little bit too. Play with all of it. The master domain. Mixed master done for scale. It's an early sketch of Big Guy. You know what I noticed flipping through here? There are several of these panels where the baseline is your bottom of your panel coming through here.
It's probably a lot of Mobius, man.
Yep. That's my guess. Oh, that's interesting. Drawing based on a sculpture. Going back and forth. You know, I'm sure the drawings are what inspired the sculpture, and then you get it back.
Yeah, and I think that piece was actually the cover of the trade paperback.
These are such cool concepts. You know, before we had artist editions or whatever, like for an editor at Dark Horse to look at Darrow's work and think, let's try this format. It's really fantastic. It's one of those, like, we often talk about Mark Chiarello as being like an editor that had some ideas of doing new types of books and showcasing artists. I think you could argue that these oversized line art editions, that's an editor that really recognized in Jeff Darrow something special art-wise and was like, how can we show that special quality? And it's easy to imagine you're the editor seeing the line art come in.
Right.
You know, like, seeing that, you had to be just blown away. You see lots of comic book art, which would just make you appreciate this more. And then it's like, hey, there might be other people that would react this way. Let's put it out in front of people.
Yeah, it's taken another bites of that apple too. It's such a massive amount of work on Jeff's part that you don't want it to be a periodical piece. Like a magazine where it comes and goes. It has its day in the sun and then it's done. So like you have to mine this a little bit. This is a kind of a work that requires more than one viewing.
Honestly, like if this were just to come out today, I feel like it would still be turning heads. It's not like it's lost any of its fastball.
Totally.
Nobody's caught up to this.
No, and like when Avatar Press and those guys like try to bring out like their Jeff Darrow wannabes, they just capture the barest superficiality of what Jeff Darrow does. They don't compose the work the right way. It's just the thick and thins and like the multitude of line, but they can't separate the objects as well as he does. Like when you see his work at this level, you see the genius in all its glory for sure.
Yes.
Good to go?
I am.
Let me clean this real quick, man. I don't like it. Well, I guess we're gonna have the background up for the rest.
Do we for the game? Because everything's gonna be white on top of it. I was gonna run it without the background.
Yeah, let me clean this up, man, because our background had a little schmutz on it.
Oh, and don't be looking my way.
Yeah, I won't.
I forget about the secrecy involved in this game.
Yeah. Hey, Jimmy, you know what I think I'm gonna do next time?
Yeah.
Because like I think we can make this game a hit. And what I think I'm going to do with the next one is isolate. Basically, we won't play the game in here. I will isolate panels and digitally. I probably just will stay in there, and I'll just show them to you on my phone. But I'll digitally like make them real big on in the edit, and then I think that will be a better presentation.
The only flaw I see in that is if it's something that we're going to flip through a couple pages of, or show whole pages, you just need a few more images.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something that we could, shoot when we come back in here. Do I need to give you some stuff to cover up?
I brought stuff. I think I should be okay.
You'll be able to cover. All right, man.
I believe I am ready for that. How did we start this?
In the other room or whatever, or like last time.
Or we just start? Well, I was thinking of the intro. Like, is the intro just on a white?
Well, I mean, we had the background.
All right, maybe I'll put the background down for the intro, and then we'll get into the cutting. Stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing. I did a lot of editing.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to not talk whenever we're not.
Yeah, and you know what? Direct it because you're the guy editing, right? So
Yep.
Direct it and tell me to shut up if. Tell me to shut up if I am going on. We should probably do a bunch of art ones first before I give you the lettering challenge. You know. Like,
Yeah, lettering's deep.
Like
It's a deep cut.
But to me, it's really fascinating because I think I could show you one letter of some guys and you'll get it. And certainly it's like isolate one word, and then isolate one balloon. You know what I mean? Like grab like say 5 or like 3 different images from different letterings and see like how little you need before you.
It's wild to think of doing this on that scale.
I think it'll be so because like I'll choose guys that like I'm so sure that you'll get. Like we know what Jaime's lettering looks like, you know, and I can look at Jaime's lettering and tell you what era.
Yeah, that kind of like the cartoonists that do their own lettering, I think will be some of the more distinct lettering.
Mm-hmm.
A little more, a little bit more personality in those.
So I'll be faced this way to do the intro.
Yeah, I guess just lock it on that. And that's probably all you'll need because the comics are thin.
You'll have to adjust because...
Oh, yeah, we'll move it in and out.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then always make sure you adjust this piece.
Yeah.
Good to go for your.
Hit it. Hello and welcome to your favorite YouTube channel, Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Jim Rugg.
I'm Ed Piskor.
And we are a daily comic book YouTube channel with over 1,600 videos in our back catalog. You can go to the Cartoonist Kayfabe YouTube homepage and search for your favorite comic book titles or your favorite comic book creators, and chances are we've already covered those. I also want to let everybody know that we have a Cartoonist Kayfabe Patreon. There are 3 different levels, and at the King Kayfaber level, you get to sit in on the recording session. We've got a room full of King Kayfabers with us right now. In addition to the fun conversation that is had throughout the recording session, you also get access to whatever books we're showing off first, which means you get them before they disappear from the aftermarket or go up in price, something we call the Kayfabe effect. So check out our Patreon in the links below the video and see which level suits you best. So today we are playing a game. I'm going to show Ed some panels, and we're going to see how well he can guess the artist in those panels.
Yeah, it's a conversation about style. Like how little do you need to see of a drawing to be able to tell who drew it, you know? And when we did it last time, the thought was choose stylistic artists that I think you would easily be able to identify and just show you just like the smallest, barest little piece. And you were a fucking ringer. So the pressure is on. You know the other challenge and the reason why you have to... This is off the record, of course. Of why you have to... you have to choose a comic that, like... You don't think the other guy will easily be able to identify.
Yes, it's true. Yeah, there were things that I steered away from because it's like, oh man, you're gonna know that book.
Right. And remember to lock it in and stuff so that it's not fuzzy, Jimmy.
All right, man, give it a shot.
Oh my goodness. I guess, man, maybe I'll say, oh no, I was going to say maybe Marshall Rogers, but then I was going to say maybe Byrne. I think I'm going to need another one, Jimmy. This is pretty obtuse. I think Byrne is higher on my list.
All right, man, here's another panel, and this is the next panel on the page.
See, I'm going to try not to look at any of this. Man. See, now I want to say colon, dude. I think he might have stumped me. But, like, I don't think he would do the backgrounds the way he did in that previous one. Yeah, this is just not quite enough for me, Jimmy. One of the other things I appreciated with the audience is that everybody seemed reasonably honest about, like, damn, I couldn't get this one, I couldn't get that one. I could get some prints and stuff.
I think this will work.
You know,
It's mostly just to block you out. That won't even probably be on the
Let me
screen.
get a print because I don't want a shadow being cast. Here. And then remember your camera focus and all that.
Okay, ready when you are.
Oh my god, dude, see, you're being a dick.
This will make sense whenever the reveal comes up.
Right, because it's a Spider-Man thing, so there's probably so much fucking Spider-Man.
All right, let me discourage that. It is not Spider-Man. I don't know why the thwip is in there. It's not even Spider-Man as a guest star.
See, and here's the thing, too. Here's where I'm going to defend myself, is that a lot of people have background helpers and stuff, even inkers. So I don't know that I'm getting enough here. Do you think with the panels that you showed, like, that you would be able to guess who the guy was?
This is reverse. This is probably one of the harder ones in my pile here.
Yeah.
This is a giveaway panel, and I think when you hear who this is, you'll look at this panel differently. So, do you want one more panel from this book?
Give me a figure. Like,
okay.
Yeah, give me a figure, and I think I'll have confidence. And it could just be even the body or something. Because if you give me a face, I think I might be able to guess.
Okay, ready when you are.
See, Jimmy, I feel like I was doing penance for what you call it, man, for the John Byrne building I showed you. Okay, so I'm thinking David Mazzucchelli.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Didn't the last panel make sense? It reminds me of Batman Year One whenever Batman comes out and interrupts those guys robbing the TV from the fire escape.
Yeah.
That was the panel that I thought, like, for backgrounds, because I've looked at a bunch of backgrounds going through this, and some of them I look at and I'm like, there's no information there to me as to who it is, but that one panel I thought did kind of look like...
You know, I don't think the cars would have given it to me, but, like, the backgrounds that would... Like, some Born-Again ones from, like, the outside of, like, a slushy... building tops and stuff would give it to me. And
his rooftops are really distinct.
And it's the thick and thins. You never seen this comic. So first off, you can look at the whole thing, right? And it's like, okay, this is like a Marvel era, probably an 80s comic. Nobody was inking with these kind of thick and thins.
Yes.
Back then with that a wobbly brush.
Yeah, this is a cool issue too. Like I've been buying these Daredevils that are Mazzucchelli before the Frank Miller Mazzucchelli Daredevils. Let me lift this up and just show off a couple of these pages.
You know what's interesting, Jimmy? Honestly, if you would have showed me this page, I don't think I would have guessed Mazzucchelli.
Interesting. Can you hit the refocus there? That's the thing that's strange. Is like he evolves a lot.
Yeah.
You know, across a couple of issues. I had an issue like right before this that he pencils and inks. It's in Venice. Look, there's some rooftops too, and I don't know that I would pick Mazzucchelli in some of them. Sometimes you'll see it, but then other times it's not obvious.
What issue are we looking at there?
This is 225, so this is right before the Born Again stuff comes in. Like, I looked at this
That's
figure,
Maz.
and it's like, it's so bizarre, though. It's so awkward, because I think of him as this great figure artist. And this issue is actually, I think, really standout.
I love that. This was a late issue for me. I got this one fairly recently, because I have all of his other works I've had for 30 years.
Like I don't know if this would have given it away. It doesn't quite feel like Mazzucchelli in some of these panels yet.
Right.
Like, it's really interesting because I feel like he radically forms into what we think of as like the mature Mazzucchelli. Like, he's experimenting in these issues that lead up to it.
Yeah, I feel so comfortable that I didn't guess it, and I, with the exception of people that know this issue well, I'm gonna call BS if they say that they got it, man. But that was a good one.
Yeah, it's tough too, because once you see Murdoch, I think that's a giveaway. So I was trying to find panels that didn't show him. Yeah, there's not much info in this car panel. Right. But I think of the cars in Batman Year One, and it's like he did figure out these cars in a way that I think stands out compared to most. But these kinds of faces, there's a couple of those vulture faces in this issue. They're wild.
Right. Next one?
Yep.
And you know what, Jimmy? Like, one of the things I did with the edit was, like, I sweetened it a little bit by cutting some of the things out. So, like, keep that in mind.
I feel like this is going to look really cool on video too, like the isolated panels, with the white around them and stuff.
Totally. Like, I think we could really make this grow on social media by, like, just showing, like, the little pieces.
All right, man. Whenever you're ready.
All right, man. So we got a new one. All right, my mind is in a couple places here, so I'm going to need some more afterwards. A couple of people that I'm thinking Mark Tex, I'm thinking Klaus, and in a weird way, I was thinking, no, you know what, man? Those are the clothespin people. And you know what the clothespin people are?
No, I've never heard that.
That Joe Kubert created the clothespin people. Now, I'm not saying this is Joe Kubert, but it could be Adam or Andy. So I'm going in a QB direction, for sure.
Wait, tell me the clothespin people
they look like
right.
clothespins.
Fascinating.
Yeah,
fascinating.
That's Joe Kubert's stroke.
Okay.
And a lot of the QBs. Here, should I not look?
No, you're good. I'm just expanding the
I see.
panel.
Okay, so I'm definitely thinking Joe.
What characteristic in this panel pushes you that way?
The feet, the way he's standing on the horizon line. I've seen Joe Kubert do that with, like, Tor. Very kinetic inking. You could see, like, the pens and stuff. And its employment of brush, dip pen, and you see, like, the little ball of ink there, man. Like, even fucking rapidographs and stuff, probably. You see that hand? I think that hand is very much Joe Kubert-ish, but I'm not 100% sure. It could be Adam and Andy too.
I'm gonna give you one more panel from this sequence. So,
this doesn't help. But you know what? Like, I'm thinking Joe.
It is Joe Kubert.
Yeah.
I love the swerve from the Jansen direction to the Joe Kubert direction.
The Jansen stuff, to me, I was looking at this, I was looking at that, but then when I started looking at these guys, I'm like, that's the Joe Kubert clothespin.
That's fascinating. I've never heard the clothespin thing before. It's really good. This is a Punisher Warzone. This is what I thought was Kubert's, like, some of his first work at Marvel, but I guess he had done some stuff like inking, I guess, one of his sons before that.
Show the cover, man, so the people can find it at home. Number 31.
Yeah, this was super cool. Punisher Warzone 31. This was super cool for me because Kubert comes in and does 6 issues of this.
Right.
And weirdly, in our intro, you were talking about Kubert, Punisher, Russian stuff. This is a story, like, this may have been the story that you were talking about. But I was just in it because it was Joe Kubert pencils and inks.
I've never seen this. Comic.
Really?
Yeah.
It's 6 issues of Kubert, man. So it's kind of cool for that reason. And I'll show you a couple of the other panels that I had flagged. He's so
That's
distinct
so Kubert,
stylistically to me. Like I thought about showing, this top New York as well. This whole page to me says Joe Kubert very much.
Yeah.
And again, this has been on my list as something that we might look at. I was thinking of these, the cars from early on. Would these have done anything for you, do you think?
I think so, man. I do think so, because his inking is so distinct.
It is. I wasn't... This probably wouldn't do it for me. I probably wouldn't figure out Joe Kubert from this information.
If you showed this first, I would definitely want a second bite at the apple before I locked in my answer. And
then this was going to be a panel that I showed if we were going to do show a figure.
I think see, it's so hard to tell, right? If you would get, but I would think that this foliage would give it to me, because that's the distinct foliage. Like you see that in the Kubert School ads.
Yeah, it's that Tarzan ad. His stuff is so distinct. Like I almost didn't do Kubert because I was like, I don't know, man. It was hard to find panels
right
that I thought weren't clear.
Yeah, once again, it's more about a conversation about style.
Yeah.
Than it is just about playing Stump the Buoy.
Dude, the clothespins.
The clothespins.
New to me.
This is also the thing where when people suggest autism in our direction or something.
Well, those people are mean. Okay, man, I'm ready when you are.
You're focused and everything?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
This is a tough panel for this artist, but there's one characteristic that I think, once you know it, you'll recognize him in this characteristic.
Yeah. So I'm leaning strongly toward John Romita Jr. And interestingly, I'm not sure that I'm getting a John Romita Jr. Al Williamson vibe. I'm wondering if there's a different inker or something. The size of this character's head makes me think of JRJR. The position of this character, the way he's lighting the hair, makes me think of JRJR. But there's definitely some ticks, and I think it's the inking. Like, I don't think the penciler inked this. So let me get another one, Jimmy.
Sounds good. All right, ready?
Yeah, I'm going to continue on that JRJR train a bit. It's kind of that face, maybe. The drapery is getting away from me a little bit. But that feels like Al Williamson, like what Al Williamson does to his JRJR's inking. And you know what's interesting? If it is JRJR, like we saw that panel with the kids before that, and it was kids that got him kicked off X-Men. Like Chris Claremont didn't like the way he drew kids, and I thought those were good-looking kids.
So, maybe he went to the woodshed, because this is JRJR.
Okay.
So maybe that's he rededicated himself to drawing kids.
Is it Al Williamson inking?
Yes.
See, there's some stuff like that. Is this early in their collaboration?
It is early. It is early, and that's another thing. It's funny, like looking stuff up, trying to figure out. You don't want it to be too obvious,
right? Because Al Williamson, I don't think would get so deep with the noodles there, but he does do that to our guy. maybe use a little bit more brush than I remember him using, or a heavier hand with the brush, maybe.
The other panel that I was going to show was going to be this top one. And again, I think his figures are really distinct, so
Yeah.
I couldn't show even like a non-Daredevil figure without giving that away, I don't
Totally,
think.
yeah. It's got to be... Show the cover.
But I thought the background, you know, like I thought this was kind of neat for JRJR.
Yeah.
So 250 is very early
Right.
in the Daredevil run with Romita Jr. and Al Williamson.
Yeah, man. It's so funny because I was going to... the first time we played this game, I was going to pull a JRJR for you.
Yeah, it's hard not to do favorites, and you know, you think back over, you know, I'm trying to think of stuff that we've seen and or maybe even covered,
Right.
You know, but artists that we've definitely talked about, and I know that you know a little bit.
On the little kid panel, what was the distinct thing that you noticed?
Yeah, the distinction for this panel.
Like, I'll point out, like, for me, it's him.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Mine is that view.
Okay.
He does like a 3/4 view, and often it's in a figure.
This-
but I
it's-
thought that's something I like. It's an isometric kind of view.
That feels like JRJR to me.
Yeah, that's a
like,
pretty
like,
good one.
Like that guy right there. And it's also kind of like he really understands what he's drawing, like the volume and stuff.
Yes, which is part of that like 3/4 view.
Right.
Which is, you know, what I was thinking with the floor and the desks, the way they were set up. You know, it's very much almost like 101 if you're going to give us a three-dimensional box. Would you have recognized like this if you saw
I
the
would.
close-ups of the faces?
I
I thought they might have been a little too clean.
Well, see, those lips you would recognize, but I would recognize these guys for sure. And then also, see, this is where we're bound by more than just like the era and all of it. Just you sort of know that it's like a certain period of Marvel. I don't know that I would have got it with that.
Oh, that's interesting because the line work I feel like is consistent, although that
Totally.
background doesn't even feel like Williamson to me. Some of those
And
marks.
you know what? It might not be like the stuff that we pointed out. It might not be Williamson because you know we knew that he used Rick Veitch.
This
for
is
stuff.
the other thing that I try to avoid, like figuring stuff out. Is to me, there's nothing on here that gives it away. Knowing it's Al Williamson, I recognize this hatching.
Yeah.
But this is so atypical. I feel like there's nothing there to really to recognize.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Maybe that would be like, you know, the first panel you got to show to really play Stump the Buoy.
Okay, ready when you are. I'll also say this. As I show you these panels, the first panels are probably going to be the hardest.
Of
you know
course,
what I mean?
yeah. So I'm looking at the drapery. Oh man, here's the thing, Jimmy. Like, I'm thinking that this is going to be John Romita, and I was actually dreading John Romita because there's a lot about him that I don't like. If I see the right face, I'll always be able to guess it. If I see the right hand, I'll always be able to guess it. But there's certain stuff that has been codified by other hacks and jobbers and stuff that can throw me for a loop. So my first instinct is Buscema, and what I'm looking at is the drapery. I'm looking at the way he's able to like bend these figures so well, the levels of depth, the sort of attention to detail and stuff. It feels well crafted. I don't think you'll get something as sound from like a younger artist who is even getting started in the 80s. So that's where I'm leaning, but I'm going to need another piece. You know, what'd be interesting too, Jimmy, is if we do something where we just like lock in a field of color, and like, can you guess from just looking at this color who the cartoonist is? That could be an interesting thing.
Yeah, that feels tough. I did think about color and some stuff, like there were Baxter paper things that I was looking at, and I'm like, is that too? Does that you know what I mean? Like, what gives away hints?
Totally.
All right, man.
Okay, I'm feeling way more comfortable with the Buscema vibes, so I'm going to be embarrassed if it's not, if I keep explaining my thoughts. Once again, the drapery is so good, and he just has such a knowledge. The dynamism feels solid compared to somebody who's kind of cheating. Using the Kirby language is a big part of it too. You know, that feels like how to draw comics the Marvel way. But because so many people like cribbed him, I'm gonna ask for just one more, Jimmy. Because that's the other thing, man. Like, I was thinking, like, unless we were playing like Stump the Game, and I can actually see it evolving into that, like, because like if we keep just guessing them all the time, maybe that's like less interesting.
It is good if it takes a couple panels.
I
think.
But like, something like a Ron Friends, Joe Sinnott Thor comic, like, would you be able to guess that or not? You know, like, that'd be an interesting thing to try, because you're dealing with somebody working within a house style.
Yes.
But Ron Friends has his ticks.
All right.
Now that's not the face to make me just automatically say Buscema, but I'm gonna stick with John Buscema, and it's the folds that I'm looking at, and it's the dynamism of the composition. There's not like a tell on the bodies that much. It's all in the drapery for me.
It is John Buscema.
Who inks him? Did he ink himself?
I wondered if you were going to guess that. He does not ink himself here, although the Punisher Warzone that preceded the Joe Kubert is 4 or 5 issues of John Buscema inking himself. That almost made the cut.
Yeah.
This is Al Williamson. This is Wolverine pages. And I thought the more you see of it, like you mentioned color, to me this color is super distinct, and I fell in love with this panel of Wolverine, like the half face looking in and stuff.
Yeah, it's pop art.
But it feels very much... Buscema has a lot of Buscema-isms. You know, like I always say, like I got How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, and then I got these Wolverines. You know, this is a little bit earlier than Wolverine 10. This is number 4.
That's like a classic Buscema face. It's something about those eyes.
His nose is pretty distinct, too.
Yeah, that's probably...
he has a pretty distinct face. He definitely has a pretty distinct face. But you know, like the Roughhouse punching that car, it's that wide leg base.
Right,
It's
yes.
something I associate with him. You could probably trick me on a Sal Buscema because he will do those really wide bases as well. This one is from Wolverine number 4.
We got one more? Or we do one more?
One more. I got one more.
All right, man, let's do it.
It's funny because I want to say stuff about these, but I don't want to give away any hints.
Right, yeah.
It's also funny because I forget at times, like, which panel did I think I should show on this one?
Right. I like that you sort of tag them. I'll do that for the next round to try to be more speedy.
Okay.
Wow. I don't have much, man. Looking at that drapery, looking at the hand.
Do you take anything from this, like guessing book or era or publisher, anything like that when you know, like?
Yeah. Okay.
What's the cycle through the brain? What's actually shifting through there?
See, Animal like was fucking me up a little bit because I would just automatically assume, you know, a Marvel Western. The lettering looks a little weird for that.
The hand is making me think Jack Davis, but it's pretty much a guess. I'm looking at the inking there. That looks weird to me. That character. Let me get a, well, I guess I could look at the monitor. Yeah, dude. Actually, maybe that monster's foot might be a little Davis-ish. But that would be wild. The things that make me feel the Davis thing is like some of that drapery there, and definitely the hand. But I think I'm gonna have to see some more because like I don't. Well, he does kind of build his hands. I'm gonna have to see some more, Jimmy.
Look, man, three rocks here. I don't know if that gives you a hint of.
Oh, it's a Bushmiller. Bushmiller Shady Past. This is a good one, Jimmy. You have confidence I should be able to guess this guy?
Yeah, I think you'll come up with it. All right.
Oh, sweet, man. Well, I have more confidence in Jack Davis at this point.
It is indeed Jack Davis.
Yeah. Like, because you could see it here. You could see it in the hand. You could see it in the way he builds that figure. I think he's being way more rushed in his drawing than he is with like his EC works. Probably getting paid a lot less. But there's just certain things like having the balls to have such a skinny wrist with the big. He can't help but cartoon, and he's got his cartoony ticks and those like bread loaf shoes.
Yeah.
That he would do is definitely him. These kind of big fingers, doing that little, like the little wrinkles are definitely a part of it.
Yeah, those little lines I think are a tick. It's so fascinating. If you see this gun, it's like one line that loops around. Like it looks fast. I love. The shape of this dude's head is pretty entertaining. Let me show you one more pan. Well, you know what? We can let me pull the camera back and look at this because this is one of those comics that I kind of wanted to show off, and I don't know if it's its own episode, but it's super cool as an artifact to me because this is a reprint.
Yeah, so this is probably from the 50s.
Rawhide 35. Yeah, I was trying to figure out like what's he working on then that he's now moonlighting or doing some work at Marvel for probably really minimal rates.
Yeah.
But it's this like superhero character called the Raven, and it's just Jack Davis, no inker, but I imagine he's turning these out pretty quick. And it's full of these kinds of panels that I think are amazing.
Yeah.
It's very fun to me to see Davis doing this kind of stuff. I almost showed you this panel. I don't know if that one would have given it away or not, but it's just funny to see him working a little bit outside of the Jack Davis, the normal Jack Davis.
There's the bread loafs.
Yep.
That he does, man. Like that's
those
really
are a big giveaway
and
to
that
me.
hand, kind of. I like the way he builds his hands.
Yeah, and this is just a few small pages here, so we'll just flip through real quick. I like this gun cutting into the silhouette behind, and to me that silhouette is one you could almost pull right out of Mad Magazine. It's like super shorthand, quick background.
You know, if I would have seen this after as a second panel, because when I saw the first one, there was a piece of me that was thinking of Kurtzman, and that hand just gives it away too much, but like that feels like a Kurtzman silhouette.
Yeah, it's really interesting for how much this is outside of, I think, of typical Jack Davis. Like I thought that horse, if you saw that horse, to me that's super Jack Davis. Yeah, a lot of little isms in it, but the story itself that it's this like superhero, a masked superhero in the Old West.
Yeah, pretty wild.
To me is pretty strange. And I wondered, like, is this humbug era? Like, does he need money? Like, is this something that he's flipping around pretty quick? Because
he was definitely doing mad work.
Things may not
forever.
be going well.
So he's making money at that. But you know, he's a guy like.
These are all so great. Like, look at that for a panel.
Like, just because you do jobs doesn't mean you're a jobber, you know? And he is a professional illustrator, and he's getting a ton of work in all avenues. So this is probably just yet another opportunity that came his way, man. And the famous thing is he could turn, and we know how ornate the EC stories are. They would say that he would do those in a weekend. So something like this, he might be able to do in like 2 days, 3 days.
It looks fast, but again, very fun to me. I love that there's like a masked superhero.
It's
in the
really
Old West.
cool, man. It suggests a lot of things.
Gene Colan here on our backup story too.
And we never would have guessed him.
Right.
That's very early Gene Colan.
It is. It makes me wonder as we continue going through Marvel, if we're going to see this show up at some point.
Right, or it might already be past, really.
Yeah, it's possible. This is
Right.
74 in a reprint, so
It's Rawhide Kid 34, so like whenever that comes
yeah,
around.
100 issues ago. So we'll keep our eyes peeled for it. But pretty fun, Jack Davis, I think.
Yeah, super fun game, Jimmy. It's always fun to kind of keep the sword sharpened. And one of the tasks that we have with doing the Kayfabe channel is you can't be so superficial as to just say, "Oh, it's cool." You gotta have some reason. You gotta think things through a little bit. Be a little bit more observational and articulate it a bit. Playing this game enhances that.
Yeah, I thought you did really well pulling Jack Davis out of that first panel. Because
Yeah.
this is definitely a curveball when I think of Jack Davis. This is a little bit outside of his norm.
That was a wild panel.
So, good call.
Good to go.
Yes.
Super fun, man. Yeah, we gotta figure out how to sell these like super, because we should do this one like regularly.
I don't know what the angle is for selling it, but it's very fun. It's a great way to talk about this stuff, and then it's also like
It'll be my records and stuff. So
it's also it's a great way to show off books that may not be a video.
yeah,
that's some of my favorite stuff.
Truly, and with these things like
Kubert Punisher we probably ought to do at some point.
yeah, no, that was pretty cool.
Oh, here.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. You just put that wherever. But whenever you upload it, dude, I'm going to here, I'll grab my issues. Like I like to show the panels off and clip them
Yeah.
before I give the answers, and just like do like I don't know if you saw any of those videos, but like I put up a video where it's basically we go through them all, and then you're like, I think it's, and then it goes to the next. So just as a way to try to sell it.
You know what? This is something that could be edited much differently.
I mean, yeah, totally. And maybe even you skip the intro, and then you just like do that piece as the intro. Yo, who's this? Who's this? Like something like that.
Coming up with the who's this to start those segments too is really good.
Yeah.
You think that's the name of the game?
Yeah, maybe. I would just think it's simple. Guess who? But like, who's this is good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Break anything down. Figuring out a good name for that game would go a long way, I think.
Yeah, agreed. Come around to Jimmy, and I'm gonna try to keep this plugged in. Let's talk Marvel. Let's talk Marvel.
Rawhide Kid 35, 1955, so we're not going to see it.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
55.
Right, it's right after EC.
Yeah, so that must have been like those books go away. He's got some free time. Rob McCallum said there's a Born Again Treasury edition out at the end of the month. I did not know that. That's how they get me.
You know what's funny, dude? I floated to them. Let's do a Born Again, but let me color it. To just try to kind of keep that old color. But you know what they said? They said that they want to stay in the good graces of Mazzucchelli. So maybe it'll actually be pretty good. Maybe it won't be like that shit color. I don't know what the other treasuries and stuff look like. I mean, not the treasuries, but the other Born Again reprints.
Yeah, I can't answer that either.
But I know he would do work on them. Like he would do new covers and stuff. And by the way, like if he can't hold sway and get them to do a suitable reprint, like it's like everybody's just doomed.
Oh, you know what McCallum said? Listed as a gallery edition. That's what
We
the
already got
Weapon
the
X
artist edition.
was, right?
I don't know.
Remember the Weapon X that Marvel put out? I think they called that a gallery edition because it threw me off. In my mind, I was like, because somebody, is it Graffiti Design? Somebody does gallery editions.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, it's
And
a
they're
Disney
artist
wing. It's a Disney wing. I mean the DC wing.
Okay. So yeah, it's probably going to be like that slightly oversized
Pass me that water, though.
Weapon X Barry Windersmith from last winter.
So
Pretty
it's
sure that's
so you
what
don't
they call
need
it.
it because
No.
we got the artist edition because like that's what they'll do. That's what they did with the Weapon X one is they had a couple of reprints of some original art pages. Good to go when you are, Jimmy.
Is that locked?
Lock that bitch. Welcome to your favorite YouTube channel, Cartoonist Kayfabe. Welcome to your favorite YouTube channel, Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Ed Piskor.
I'm Jim Rugg.
It is January 1962 in the Marvel Universe today, Jimmy, and we'll get into things. But first, you guys must know, this is a daily YouTube channel. We have more than 1,600 videos at your disposal, and we might have talked about your favorite comics. Go to the front page of the Cartoonist Kayfabe YouTube channel, hit the magnifying glass, give the channel a search, and check out those episodes where we talk about your favorites. The Patreon exists for Cartoonist Kayfabe in order to help mitigate the kayfabe effect. What this is we talk about comics that very quickly disappear on the aftermarkets. They gain some quick popularity, and people go running out to buy those books. It's the King Kayfabers who get those books before anybody else, and a good number of them are hanging out with us in our live stream recording session as we record this video here today. Without further ado, Jimmy, are you ready to jump into things?
No, I have to point out that there's an Amazing Heroes swimsuit special at the top of this list.
Amongst every other issue of Amazing Heroes. Well, I guess it's all swimsuit editions.
That's hilarious to see how many they actually made.
So the way that the database works, we're using an app called Chunky. It's for the iPad. And maybe other tablets, I don't know. But it is not for the phone, so you will not see it in the App Store that way. The database we have is set up so that we could look at every month's worth of Marvel Comics. And the way it's often done is like CMC, the year, and then the month. The 00 will be the comics that don't really have an association with a particular month, and this amount of comics will grow a lot as time goes by. Like the Marvel graphic novels are considered that. The giveaway comics that will be inside of action figures will be a part of that. Sometimes trading cards. There will be CBR files and stuff of like trading card designs and stuff like that. So golden books, all that stuff goes in here. The annuals here, Millie the Model annual and a big Strange Tales annual. These would be reprints of earlier Millie stories and Strange Tales works. I don't think that there's any new materials from inside of these comics.
I wondered even when they were actually released. That 00 doesn't give us the month info, so
Right.
it's possible these were maybe closer to the summer. I think annuals often were a summertime
Right.
thing.
So if you're good, I'm good, Jimmy. Let's jump right into things
Let's.
with Amazing Adult Fantasy.
This has been the revelation, man. We looked at last month's, and these are Ditko showcases, and that adult part they're leaning into, because this is a different design than every other book that we're going to flip through this month.
Yeah, it has typography, and he introduced this splash page last month, and this is a Ditko book. There's nobody else drawing this stuff, and his splash pages are so freaking dope, dude.
I love them, and this mechanical treatment of like the captions and stuff gives it a very distinct feel. It's a bigger size lettering than the other pages to really almost make a poster out of that splash page.
Yeah, but it's full bore Steve Ditko artwork, man. Like, if you just isolate that, you could assume that that's just any old Spider-Man comic or something. But what's cool about these sci-fi tales is it really gives Ditko and Kirby, when it comes time for him, some chances to like really play with character designs and draw some fun-looking stuff.
It also reminds me of some contemporary alternative cartoonists. Gilbert Hernandez comes to mind with some
Right.
of these things. It's really eye-opening to me to see this stuff in context and think like, boy, it's pared down in a lot of ways, and I love it.
The transparent figure coming through a wall has become a trope of these Marvel comics. Employing his 9-panel grid, as we have mentioned before, a lot of mid shots here. You get one close up, but you get these full body pieces.
A lot of minimal color too, like this whole guy red, this whole guy yellow. It's funny that like transparent is white.
Right.
You know what else this reminds me of is Watchmen, and not just the 9-panel grids, but the way the splash page could practically be the cover / panel 1 of the story.
Sure.
Ooh, and whenever he does break the 9-panel grids, kind of pops.
These are fast pages. Little
Yeah.
3-pager.
Yes.
He's getting some work in quick.
This is such a bizarre story. A yo-yo. A yo-yo that is essentially a toy from the future. I guess maybe his son in the future, whatever, time traveled and forgot his yo-yo. So you get this like smart yo-yo.
I guess it was a fashionable new toy. Had its moment in time.
How about that for an ad?
Very curious, right? It's like, so how far ahead are you guys working on this stuff that you know what the next things are? Maybe noteworthy to pay attention to this and see if any of this bears out in the next.
That's true. Also interesting, like this is not going to be a series that lasts. So Marvel's given a very different treatment to this. I guess it's not going to be successful, but I love seeing them like go for it. And all of these first couple of months that we're looking at of early Marvels, to me, that's what we're seeing is like a company that's struggling.
Right.
Where's our audience? And they're trying some different stuff from book to book. And I think this is a good example. It's very different.
Look at that, just playing with Roy G. Biv for the close. Maybe that's the argument for just making them all yellow or something.
Yes,
because that really just looks like the colorist lets their child have some fun.
That's really funny. Feels like there are colors in that panel that just weren't used
Right.
throughout the rest of the comic.
Exactly.
Speaking of color, man, here we are, Fantastic Four #2. The reason that we started this series where we did is Fantastic Four #1. It's bi-monthly in the beginning, so here we are now building the universe, and they have all this gray on the cover.
Right.
I'm shocked by the color of this cover.
Right. You do have that 100% yellow, which is very eye-catching.
Definitely.
Against that black Fantastic Four, like that's a good treatment. And us being Pittsburgh boys, we respond to the black and gold.
Definitely. But the gray aliens surprise me.
Yeah, sure.
It doesn't feel like a superhero book yet. Like, I don't know that
It's
they've
true.
quite figured out this is a superhero comic.
It still reads, it's got the 4 chapters or whatever. It still has, a big monster on the cover. He might be a good monster.
Yeah, they're leaning into that. It does feel science fiction-y, and after looking at Amazing Adult Fantasy, you can see the science fiction. Not hard to step into Fantastic Four after that.
Interesting to think about how just still the culture was at the time, where this is 2 months after Fantastic Four 1 comes out. So you got to kind of remember that the Fantastic Four are good guys or something. Like having our guys show up and just do bad things. You could just imagine they're like, okay, well, they're just bad guys. You know, like it's not like these are established characters. You know, like it would make sense to do this comic for like issue 10.
Right. Yeah, it is compelling though if you're under the impression that they're the heroes since they're on the cover.
Right. And then have our dudes turn into these fellas.
Yeah, take advantage of Kirby. I love this whole 3-page sequence. Although, if you're capable of emulating the Fantastic Four powers this easily, I think we're in trouble.
Right, totally. Still, it's going to take a long time, man, to figure out the rock texture and turn it into polygons.
It does. How about that for a group shot? Reed Richards rocking the flannel shirt. They're hanging out in a rustic cabin.
Some real Swiss Family Robinson bullshit, man. Real Peckerwood nuclear family type shit.
Pretty odd.
But then you got this gimp. Little 6-panel grid at the bottom, 2/3 of the book.
Yeah, enjoy that because that whole page layout. I don't know if Kirby ever does something like that again.
And you got just these real snappy 6-7 page chapters. There's a little job, a little invoice thing. So in strip 1 in chapter 1, we established that the Fantastic Four are wanted. They've been doing some bad stuff. Now we captured them within 2 pages. And they got, singular.
They basically give up, right?
Uh-huh.
They basically give up. No fight. I'll go with you willingly. And as soon as they're incarcerated, now they're escaping. They're busting out.
So you know what the onus is on that? If this is Marvel method, it could be a thing where you could change out with dialogue and make it stronger. I'll blame Stan Lee on that one.
Boy, Reed's lucky that this flannel shirt thing kind of works.
Unstable molecules, baby. That's the answer for everything. I don't know that they say it in this yet, but that will be the answer for everything whenever the clothes stay on and all of that. I think it is issue 3 where they get the outfits.
That'll be a big moment.
Yeah, and maybe it'll be the unstable molecules that do the job.
I do think all 4 of them look great visually.
Totally.
The invisibility works, the stretching works, and Torch and Thing both look amazing.
Yeah, that's the thing too, man. He's still going Carl Burgos with the Human Torch here. We're still going timely.
The coloring is so dramatic on Torch. It's almost the only thing that really takes advantage of this coloring at this point, and it's great. It's a great character design for what you have available.
Love these little pseudo splashes.
Me too.
How about this? Looks like someone got away from Kirby a little bit.
Pretty neat.
And as a kid reading something like this, that's got to make you look at those water towers twice when you're on your way to school.
Oh, yeah, it's awesome.
You might be able to see a jet engine at the bottom of one of those things.
I wonder what the response is at this point, too, because I feel like in hindsight, everybody's smart and they get on board.
Yeah.
But I wonder, if you just flip through this, I don't know if it's obvious that there's a revolution underway here.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be in issue 3, but it'll be in issue 4 where the letters start coming in. And we got to pay, when the letters pages start showing up, we got to really start paying attention to those a little bit, man, to see if we see names we recognize. And I'm quite sure the very first letter that I recognize in issue 4 is Alan Wise, who grows on to be a cartoonist.
Love that. The Fantastic Four captured. That's a great half splash.
Yeah. And boy, did they spend a lot of time having thing go back and forth.
You know what?
Probably
I see
every issue
they dropped or like part 1, part 2.
Right.
We're still getting kind of a chapter feeling, but we're not pronouncing it quite as much.
Still got Kirby Monster vibes. You got to have your scrolls do some Marvel comic-like things, man. And then, of course, at the end, they get kind of bamboozled and hypnotized, and now they're cows on a prairie. And I think Mark Miller, there's a Skrull Crew series that sort of takes place. Like starts off with these cows, and they get their sentience back.
It's so weird too, thinking of I can't imagine Stan or Jack thinking anything of that panel at the time.
Right.
And since then, there've been a number of comics that reference that.
Right. Got our Jack Keller, Gunsmoke Western 68, Can-Am Publishers. Jack Keller, man, he's a carpenter.
Having grown up in a house with a dad who loved Western cowboy movies,
sure.
I'm so impressed by how these look.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a really cool genre, and I'm mildly surprised this isn't a more popular genre to this day.
It's probably for those exact reasons, man. Because, like, definitely my pop's watching that Bonanza all the time. I'm like, I'm never watching Bonanza.
Yeah, but you see it flare up now and then, with an Unforgiven or a Tombstone or something, like this stuff does pop up from time to time, and it just seems like, hey, they're trying to make money. You
Sure.
could probably sell a good Western.
Paul Rainman on duties there.
They look good. It's a good team they have.
Dick Ayers.
Yeah, I looked up some of the art, and we'll get to it at some point. I'll call out a couple more of these artists. Like Don Heck is a guy that I was wondering, like, who drew this? And so I
Right.
looked it up. So
Yeah, and there are some reprints, I believe, like even from the 50s.
that's a weird splash.
Yeah, it's a good drawing. Like you don't see Kirby like pay too much attention to light source very often. So
You
it's
could
fun to
see Charles Burns like redrawing that character. That,
Right.
that whole thing just has that oddness to it.
Yeah, and that's pretty weird with the color.
Yeah.
You don't see that often. A little halo. Getting his energies in, like look how rough it is to start. When Cynic gets on board, he's going to tighten that stuff up, and then these will become little dots eventually.
That's another effect where I imagine the penciler getting that and just being like, what the heck is this?
The
What is
inker,
this
you mean?
supposed to... Yeah, the inker. What is this supposed to be, Jack? Yeah, that stuff gets codified.
Easy panel to draw for Uncle Jack, who's got a bunch of pages to draw that month.
That's the other thing is what's he thinking putting those panels in a plotted, where he's basically writing the story. Like, does that signify something? It's almost like an editorial cut.
Right.
And this may be that may have been Don Heck.
Right. Yeah, it definitely wasn't one of our guys, but this is Kirby.
Heck is good for a while. We looked at like a pre-code horror book a while back, if you remember, and Don Heck was one of the big dudes in there.
Yeah. No, he's got skills. He's one of those guys that he's got the talent like to get some work in, man. But he's
I think something happens, and I don't want to say for sure, but I think it may be alcoholism. Like at some point he takes a turn is what I came across in a very tiny little bit of research. That's a great panel.
Dude, as a little kid,
Yes.
reading something like this, how would you not want every issue?
It's so fun.
And having the menace dudes. I love this Steve Ditko splash.
He's phenomenal.
It almost looks like a maze.
Uh-huh.
It looks like it would never pass the muster in the Marvel era of comics. So it's super unique.
It's another one I look at and think like alternative cartoonists took notes
Yeah,
over
for
this
sure.
kind of stuff. And especially Gilbert Hernandez that has like a half a dozen of these textures that he pulls out. It would be right at home on a page or a panel like that.
Yeah, agreed. And this is one of those real quickies. I think there's an EC story that's almost exactly like this, where there's some goofball talking about all the great things he sees outside, and
So much Frank Miller in this stuff. And the coloring...
especially this.
The coloring... Is Ditko coloring... is he doing guides himself? Because this
Right.
coloring is pretty sharp.
Imagine this with no color on it, though. Man, it'll feel just like a Sin City piece.
Yes.
Kid Colt Outlaw, another Jack Keller bit.
Yeah, I wonder if when the Westerns go away, Jack Keller is just like, I'm out. I guess I'm going to be done with comics.
Right.
This could be your pop art Andy Warhol painting.
Yeah, agreed, man. Yeah, I mean, I think I've seen Elvis in that pose.
Yeah. Maybe put some silver ink on it.
Those comic book fingers. Right? Like Don Simpson will take that and go super far with
That whole panel is comic book. Like the cross-hatching in the background, everything. Like that just feels like, there you go. You could give that to maybe a newbie inker and be on his way.
Seeing a 6-panel grid like this, we don't see that often.
No, and I love the cartooning. Like this guy is such a cartoon character.
Yeah.
Has some menace, but also it's in the cartoon language.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'd be like if Randy Quaid or Dennis... Randy Quaid? Yeah, if he was the bad guy in a thing. And then there you go. Like, when he does this shit, like, it really has that John Severin face. It's those eyes that are like rectangles.
I've said it in other videos unrelated to this, but I talk about how good the figure drawing is here, and part of the reason I say that is you're not photo referencing this stuff. This is a
Right.
guy like dashing off figures, riding horses, shooting each other, different angles, all this stuff. And a guy that we don't celebrate,
Yeah.
and I don't just mean us, I mean comics history, and yet solid everywhere.
So taken for granted.
Yeah.
Like they could dazzle the fuck off of your pants, man. But
People do not have this skill set by and large today.
no, it's true. Yeah, it's with the drapery, the shorthand of all of it.
That's a great face, this character. He's smiling in all of them, too. Like, what a menace. Throw a Dutch angle in, throw a shadow in. This is a genre, again, part of the reason I'm surprised it doesn't exist is it feels like somebody did all the genre work. Like, you could just pick up these tropes and tell the story just in a cowboy western setting.
And by the way, man, you don't know how hard it is to draw a cowboy hat,
That
certainly
is
at
true.
different angles, if you're not tasked with doing it, man. Go try to draw a cowboy right now.
Would not surprise me if there was a cowboy hat or two in the studio
Gotta
of
be.
these guys.
Gotta be. And that's a tax write-off, man. You gotta go get your reference. I'm sure the pistols are slaying around there too. There's the great photos of Milt Kniff where he has like one helmet from every single
Yep.
World War II army on his bookshelves. Linda Carter.
Yes, and this is the other exhibition, Your Honor, that Marvel has no idea exactly like how to sell comics or who their demographic is, and these will linger for a while, and I think it's because notice the advertising. Like they've got clients buying the advertising, so you keep creating product that these advertisements make sense in.
Right. And it is a different round of this nurse stuff was not in the Fantastic Four comic.
Totally.
The little dolls, of course, men are catering to chicks.
It's really neat. We called out earlier on how there would be like single pages of outfits, and then you'd have like the who did them, who gets credit, and they're in the stories.
Mm-hmm.
It's so cool. It's hard for me to believe people are sending in ideas for like outfits, but I guess people used to make their own clothes. This is
Sure.
early 60s.
And it's just a fun drawing. Like, you see the names, you see the address. Like, there's hundreds of thousands of these out there probably. So, of course, they're going to...
My
Get
mom tells
mail.
a story, that her mother made their clothes when she was growing up. So, like, fairly common, I think, in the 50s, 60s.
I mean, it just as a drawing thing, it's like, yeah, I'll put some outfits on. I'll draw an outfit. Why not? And it's not like, they're being reinterpreted. What would be cool is to see the actual drawings.
That would be amazing. Yeah, I'd be very curious about that. I never even thought of that. That's, again, it's strange, the idea that somebody's sending this stuff in.
Wild Marks from Al Hartley.
That is really good. That is really good.
Looks like
That's
mud
supposed
or
to
something.
be a fur or something,
Yeah.
and it looks like something that you just pulled out of the dirt.
Looks like Clayface.
cobwebs. That colorist isn't helping anybody.
No, playing with that gray, right?
Hey man, so this gets pretty interesting. Is this the issue? One of these is all Kirby. I
Solo
think this
Kirby
is all
romance.
Kirby.
Yeah. Love romances, man.
Something to pay attention to at home if you're not familiar with Kirby romance. You'll see the angles are much different here. It's
Right.
much more like straightforward kind of stuff.
Totally. Crazy inking.
Wonder who's inking this stuff.
This guy looks like fucking vapid, like a bimbo. Like he just says cipher.
Right.
He
Yeah.
barely opens his mouth.
I had to look twice to be like, is this Kirby? Because some stuff you can see it unmistakably, but then other bits of the finish are like, some of these characters do look doll-faced.
Got our Hartley inking or
And that's
something.
D-U-L-L,
Yeah.
not D-O-L-L.
But then, unmistakable Kirby bits there. And then, like this, like that wild drawing, that's beautiful.
That's amazing.
That's
really
incredible.
something. And there are moments, I
Sure.
think this panel's a really cool panel. Some of the city stuff just shows how Kirby could do everything.
Look at the verbal diarrhea. Too much.
These look like something Lichtenstein's just copying right off of these pages.
This is a panel straight out of X-Men issue 1, whenever Jean Grey arrives and the boys are looking down.
It's such a throwaway. Like, if you're just flipping through, you can just completely miss it, and yet it's a high angle. It's information. It's a nice frame.
You see this piece in black and white without the lettering, you might say Jaime Hernandez.
Interesting, yeah.
You don't think?
Yeah, I agree with you, yeah. Couple of lines for folds, it's not over-rendered.
Maybe even this. That's clearly a Kirby hand, but... Yeah, this is a revelation. He has 2 full books. It might have one other one, actually.
Yeah, I thought this was cool. And again, for people at home, if you're unfamiliar, like Kirby and Simon invent the romance genre, and it sells millions of copies.
He sees that Steve Ditko started putting his signature in this fashion, so J. Kirby gets his in. And you could tell what the story is already, man. It's like, I don't want to fuck you, you crusty fuck.
She's waving him off.
I got this Aryan poster child, which, look at that crazy texture. You never see Kirby inked that way anymore.
No, but you know what? Earlier you mentioned the halo around the art on that hand.
Yeah.
You got it again here. So something the colorist, I guess, is bringing in. There'll be something, I'm not sure, I'll try to call it out if I see it, where guys will do almost the Pete Morisi back pattern, where it's like partially black and partially open, and it's not a shadow.
Right.
It's like a weird abstract shape.
Yeah, just a design flourish.
It's so stiff at times. Like that dude in the background looks like that could be a slasher comic panel. And then that's weird. Outlines, that's something I don't see Kirby.
Yeah, that's true.
There's some great panels though. Like she looks mad.
And you see these textures. I'm imagining
Yeah,
Alex
like
Raymond
those.
is still very vital. And is he still doing stuff in like 61?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure when he dies.
But
so.
he definitely employs. There's that school of cartooning that employs like a lot of the contemporary patterns and designs and things. A lot of black on a page here.
There is.
One of the things that Kirby is super noteworthy for, like as time goes on for me, is the spotting of blacks, the way he does it. Stan Goldberg got his couple titles.
Always fun seeing Stan G versus Stan Lee in the signature departments.
Do you think Goldberg should get paid the same amount as Kirby and Lee for this stuff?
I don't know how much any of them are getting paid.
Yeah.
I think it's all peanuts, but sure, why not?
It's very diplomatic. But I bet you Marty Goodman is. Look at that. That's pretty wild. That
Feels like
hair
we're missing-
needs to be over a little bit more.
Missing an eye.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny when that shows up. And
Couple
it happens
times.
again. Like, if we ever get a peek behind that haircut, I think she might only have one eye.
Yeah. Maybe it's a storytelling flourish.
It's also, what's Roger Rabbit's?
Oh yeah, Jessica Rabbit.
Yeah. That's what he should be getting a piece of the action on that. Ripping him off. You're suggesting this is a faster, more sparse.
Yeah.
Because I'd put Al Hartley in that one too. I think Al Hartley
totally.
dashes those pages off.
Totally. Look at all the texture you got on this page. All the different patterns and stuff. That's pretty sweet. And then it's subtle shit. Like by having these rounded, it feels like a cushion.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get the errant spot illustrations throughout all of them, and I can never identify the artist. Now, looking at this, you could probably imagine there was very little penciling done. This is like a single line. It's just drawn real quick.
Yeah.
But like you can never identify who draws those.
No, a lot of those are good though. They catch my eye more often than not. Although often they're not full color.
Yeah. Look at this Lothario, Pepe Le Pew type fellow.
Yeah, it's bizarre. There's a lot. Go look at the amount of info in these two panels.
Yeah,
Like,
these outfits and stuff.
that's
Even
not
like this
quite
kind of
Al
stuff.
Hartley. I think Stan's putting a little bit more time in.
I do too. I think he's a real good cartoonist. He's giving you good variety and stuff, and he has to draw like a million different little outfits and shit.
Yeah, you know what? That takes some time.
Doesn't this? I think he's supposed to be just a human, but that feels like we got two aliens on the damn cover.
Yeah, that feels like a country type dude, and I feel like that phased out of our pop culture like archetypes.
Right. Love this panel.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
it really is. Those are standouts to me. You know what? This ain't bad either.
Yeah.
Like, that's a really nice shot. Very believable and interesting perspective. Probably not easy to draw if you're not him or thinking through Kirby's mindset. But actually, this whole page, background-wise, some interesting stuff going on.
Yeah.
I even like those shoes. Like that panel too.
Why the long face, horse?
So weird. I feel like I've seen this Kirby face a million times. I love the tiny little head behind it.
Right. This might be a cover. Like it might have been blown up somewhere. I love that image too. Like we ain't even in a space where you need all kinds of rogues galleries of supervillains. You probably never drew this guy again with the little pelvis fucking decal on it. Like that's pretty dope.
Yeah, it's amazing.
This great hand.
There's so much happening.
I love that thumb coming at you in foreshortening.
Good face too. Clearly a villain on that face.
This is such a cool drawing. And then, get the fuck out of here, man. That's awesome.
Is Kirby not working at the breakneck speed here? Like, he's putting a lot on these pages. Detailed background, city background. This is great. That face. It's a lot of cool stuff on this story. Wonder if this is something that Kirby just identified somehow, liked it.
He is a lover of pop entertainment, that's for sure, pulpy stuff. The shrinking thing is a trope as well.
Yeah. The shrinking stuff always works great. Because then you're just putting regular objects in at different scale next to a little person. Usually works well.
I feel like when we get, I'm assuming this is like Don Heck or something.
I think this is Don Heck too. And the reasons that I say that is like he has a hatching style that you see a bit in this.
Yeah. But I swear, like, they bring him in when it's time to draw, like, messed up Asian comics. Because I think that was the last one, too, the last Don Heck was like that.
Yeah, it's a tough one to get.
Looking at the textures here, right, like, everything, there's a perspective, when you're drawing something, there's built-in perspective whether you see a brick wall or not. And this is a great illustration of that, where you see the sort of texture, the rhino texture, kind of going with the form. It all is very sound, and he could have fucked that up.
This is a cool looking story too. Between this and that Kirby story earlier, like they're putting a lot on the pages. I love they're on a different planet. Is the conceit, right? It's like Martians looking at Earth being like, they think there's somebody on Earth thinking about us.
Great cover. Kirby doing his thing.
Fantastic splash page.
I wonder how many times he drew the goddamn Capitol building. And I
It
wonder
almost looks like clip art.
And I wonder if he cursed it every time.
I don't know, but he's done a few of these splash pages with like the monster that's so big it's bleeding out over the edges, and it just killer, man. That's such a good monster presentation. The shadow happens a lot too in these monster stories.
Look at that, man.
This is great stuff.
He codifies that Capitol building so well, man.
Yeah.
Because, like, what would guys do now but, like, trace a photograph?
Yeah, it's really well done. These little floating heads. Almost everything's in here. I saw a newspaper headline in a couple of the panels. And a story here is this is a too realistic movie monster. And he's going to take it apart because people are just afraid of it. You can't make a movie this scary whenever the aliens show up.
Here goes another translucent feller. Is this whole book Kirby? Or no, that was Ditko prior.
Yeah, and there's, I think, a Don Heck in there.
Doesn't this almost feel like Steranko? Like his, there was that one Nick Fury comic that happens, and it has the same kind of like level of detail.
It's a great archway. And here's our guy, man. That's almost that same panel, but you just got to put the little head next to it.
For sure.
How about that?
Another great splash.
That's amazing.
Just incredible. And I would say that Ditko letters that.
Yes, I agree with that.
But maybe not the.
I bet he lettered all of it.
Yeah, I mean, why would you have somebody else do that? Got your 9-panel grids. It's so fun because like you get so many of like the six panel treatments, and then you got like the standard, Ditko treatment with this like Eddie Munster fella. Now that's a widow's peak, no?
Oh, indeed.
And shit, if I had that kind of widow's peak, I think I'd put a mask on as well.
That's the Cobra Commander mask.
Yeah.
So here's one of our mystery artists.
This is Paul Raymond.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The Enchanted Paint.
I feel so bad. I feel like the like he's really pours it on, but it just doesn't have the graphic impact to me.
It's true.
There's something to learn from that, I think.
Don't be boring. That's the cardinal rule.
You know what, man? That's probably one of my number one complaints about comics today. Is it's like you'll see stuff and it's like, yeah, it's the best drawn car ever. I'm not interested.
Right. Now this is the revelation of this month worth of Marvel Comics. Who's the second quote unquote superhero to be introduced? It's not Thor. It's not Spider-Man. It's not the Incredible Hulk. It's technically not even Ant-Man. It's Dr. Henry Pym.
What a panel
is introduced here.
I was noticing like the ants break the
right.
hall or the holes that they're coming in, and it's it feels so much like they're crawling on top of each other and just moving.
Right. Yeah, there's so much speed. The curves imply speed, man.
This is it. Totally the mark making, the shading. Totally Gilbert Hernandez marks.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well said. It doesn't look very super heroic right here.
Not yet.
And of course, the mad scientist has to test the stuff on himself.
You know what, though, to your point of not being super heroic yet, like, I don't know that they're even totally
This is just another one of those...
embracing the Fantastic Force. You know, it's still, they haven't, like, leaned into that part.
And certainly this is just another... Like, we've seen shrinking rays and stuff on 2 other sci-fi books this month, man.
Yeah, and probably a couple of movies that came out the year prior.
Right.
It's just a great effect. It's such a good visual. I have an 80s black and white like that, Dreamweaver, where a guy ends up shrunk, and it's like, it's so cool. It's like, draw the chair from the ground up, and
Right.
it just, it works visually.
Yeah, match heads. And then, of course, the way he never stepped on an anthill again in his life or something like that.
That's the hero takeaway so far.
Of course, all his gimmicks down the thing, but obviously they don't stay gone for long. I think what's going to happen is...
This is the dumbest, like, what kind of scientist figures out, like, a shrinking and growing potion and then is like, maybe just don't pour it on myself.
Right.
There's probably some really good applications for this stuff.
I think what happens is, I think there might be one more Henry Pym story, which is atypical compared to all these other things. And then the superhero movement really starts to hit off, and then, they figure out a new use for him.
That's a really nice splash.
Yeah, it is. Look at this meanie.
Is this Ditko inked by somebody?
See, this is that whole shit where they're like, you guys always call Don Heck a Ditko, so I think it's just him again.
I like the art. Like, there's some really dramatic stuff, like the double light on the face, and that lady's face is wild.
Yeah.
Nice page layouts, too. That crash effect worked well.
Is this a mystery?
Yeah, I can't tell you who this is.
Unmistakable Ditko. I love the way he builds his figure. Like, when you could see how he kind of connects all the muscle tissue and stuff. Like, it's instructive to me.
Yeah, he's so sound.
And there's good weight to it. There's good balance. That leg is clearly, going off in the distance as this one's coming closer to us.
Yeah, and it's shorter at both the top and bottom as it goes away.
Right. Dude, this feels like a Love and Rockets comic.
It does. The first couple issues.
Yeah. And the inking is just so clean.
I do want to talk to some of these Ditko fans and hear their responses to, like, later Ditko and stuff.
Right. And the last issue of this month is Teenage Romance. We don't have the guts for this one, but there's your run. So, like, let's see what we got here, man. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sci-fi titles. We got a couple girl ones. 1, 2, 3,
a good bit.
4 of those.
Yeah, only 2 of the westerns. So again, like, that female readership is apparently pretty strong.
And one of these is not like the other. That would be Fantastic Four #2.
Yeah, although it still fits pretty well. You can even look at the Amazing Fantasy similar lettering style. So, I would guess at this stage it fits within that sci-fi world pretty well.
Sure.
It'll be interesting to see them start to break out of that into its own superhero genre.
Which I guess the costume comes next issue. So we're gonna take that leap and dabble in proper superhero comics. Pretty fascinating stuff going through these month by month, huh, Jimmy?
Yeah, I like it a lot. It's wild to me that some of these artists just go away.
Right. Good to go?
Yes.
Awesome. Let me go plug this back in real quick.
Oh man, I haven't seen the Joe Manili Facebook collection yet. Pretty curious about that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have Eric send us those.
Yeah, Andrew Carver has it, and he said there's a photo that has like a whole bunch of pistols on the wall behind Manili. Yeah, I bet a lot of these guys had cool, all kind of cool reference like that.
Next one we're gonna do, and you're probably gonna want to hop on eBay or My Comic Shop right away if you're a McFarlane fan. We're gonna call the video McFarlane's Lost Marvel Comic, Daredevil 241. Pretty early in his run. I'm thinking it's an inventory story.
Yeah, I was looking. His first Spider-Man's 88.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that doesn't sound right. I wonder if I'm wrong on that. I did look it up, and that's what I saw.
I think that's correct.
So this is 87. So he would have been doing Hulk at this point.
Shit, maybe he was doing. And he's getting juice, you know, like he's getting some popularity. So, well, there'll be things to talk about with this. Good if you are. Welcome to your favorite YouTube channel, Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Ed Piscor.
I'm Jim Rugg.
Gonna be taking a look at a super rare. We're gonna be taking a look at a forgotten Todd McFarlane. Here, how do I want to do this? We're gonna be taking a look at a forgotten Todd McFarlane comic, Daredevil 241. First, you got to know this is a daily YouTube channel you're visiting, and we might have talked about your favorite comics. We've got about 1,600 videos up there live right now. Go to the front page of the Cartoonist Kayfabe YouTube channel, search for your favorite titles, check out those videos. We are supported in part by a Patreon, and the King Kayfabers on our Patreon get access to all the videos before anybody else. Mitigates the Kayfabe effect. We just gave them fair warning to go buy this comic if they're Todd McFarlane fans and they don't have it in their libraries already. And this comic, Jimmy, was inspired by, I was texting with David Cho. He was showing off a bunch of recent pickups and things, and I totally forgot that that Todd McFarlane did this comic. You and I both have copies, so we're like, fuck it, let's look through this thing. It's been a long time.
Yeah, I can't remember if the David Show is how I figured this out or not, because I got it probably within the last year too. I did not know this as a kid.
He just texted it to me literally last week.
Okay, so yeah, somehow it crossed my path, and I can't remember how, but it's relatively recent that it did.
I had this Overstreet book that had 100 creators, and it had bibliographies for them. So I would literally like just check off the boxes as I would scoop up comics. This is April 1987. It's the Anno Nocenti era. Max Shield colorist. So Max Shield would be the colorist for the David Mazzucchelli stuff, Daredevil, Born Again. Al Milgrom on inks. So when you just start looking at it, you could kind of get confused. It's not all the great hallmarks of what you think of as Todd McFarlane work.
I was going to say right off the bat, I feel like this is the equivalent of the Jack Kirby faces being pasted up in DC Comics. These
Totally.
are Al Milgrom faces on these foreground characters.
Absolutely. And he's, McFarlane has no sway in any real way. I'm thinking that this is an inventory story or a comic that was meant for another time, because this is April 87 and it's a Christmas story.
That's a good call.
Like this thing came out probably in January, maybe February, so it missed the mark when it comes to Christmas, and it could be that the maybe JR, who was probably the regular artist at this time.
I don't think he started yet.
Okay.
This is really early in Ian Nocenti's run.
Okay, so maybe one of the artists just didn't show up that month. They got a cold or something, and they had to dust off an inventory piece. Maybe McFarlane, who is doing the Hulk at the time, maybe he's really getting some juice on the fan circuit, that they're like, you know what, we're sitting on this inventory story. We were going to put it out next Christmas, but maybe we just get it out there right now. Get a bite of the apple. I do think that he's putting work in, dude. That's a pretty ambitious splash.
This entire story is pretty nutty. Like,
it's
A
ridiculous.
lot of stuff happens. So
Yeah.
if you're the artist, I can't imagine what the plot looks like that you're drawing from, but there's a lot of work in this issue.
Yeah, totally. You see this kind of cloaked figure right there. You see Spawn right there, right? And we get a good close look. Now that feels very McFarlane-ish. We've seen him do this a bunch of times.
This is a great 2 panels, because these kids are posing as Santa to basically rip off money, and then somebody shows up in their trench coat and says, hey, you're going to give that money to charity like you said, and they're like, who's going to make us? And he just opens the shirt a little bit, like right there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. And it's a 4-page gag, 3-page gag that's playing out here. He forces the kids to give the money to this nun, and then the nun is pulling the grift.
Right. And feeling a little cynical around the holidays in this story.
Unmistakable Todd McFarlane establishing shot where you just see a nondescript exterior of buildings. I don't think that he is putting down perspective guidelines or anything. I don't even think he's taping it down, man. I think he's freehand drawing some buildings.
It's one of the more McFarlane-esque panels so far, and part of that is the tall, narrow part.
Exactly, yeah. But then it's the exterior shot with nothing going on. You know, no real storytelling value beyond we're in an apartment building. Very stiff figure up top there. And I think a lot of this, like, I think Al Milgrom is bringing his chops, because like Al Milgrom he's sound, you know, like he's good enough to get the job kind of fella, and he has all the tools at his disposal that your standard Marvel comic guy should have, including drapery. So I don't identify this as McFarlane drapery whatsoever, because it looks too good when it comes to drapery. But you see, Todd is still figuring out stuff when it comes to the anatomy a lot.
Yeah, and also I think to panel compositions, because you look here and it's like medium shots and one long shot. Give us a close-up.
Right.
You know, and close-ups are something that I think McFarlane really uses as he gets into his run a little further.
Go into the costume shop, Geppetto's Costumes.
See, that's the mark, I think, of a young cartoonist, is just how dense these pages are.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's kind of this medium shot, and he's drawing backgrounds in every panel, and good for him, but it's so much information, and a lot of it, quite frankly, is unnecessary.
Right. This is a bad storytelling piece right here, where the guy's exiting the building and looking back to talk to the shop owner, but he's kind of like looking back at the wrong shoulder, I feel like. If you're holding the door open with one, it feels like a 180-degree roll. There was a reading this panel to this panel, it felt like he's talking to somebody else, but then when you read the words, you know, he's talking to the shop owner. You know what's fun about this stuff is he swiped that from Mazzucchelli from Born Again.
Oh, interesting.
Mazzucchelli used this exact motif with like holding lines and surprints and stuff to sell us on those Rockefeller Center angels.
Wow.
And that's close. Like that is 3 comics before this or something. Well, it's probably a dozen comics before.
Does Mazzucchelli do the white for the color hold in that?
He at least, like, check out the artist edition. We have videos on that. He at least does a reductive thing using whiteout with black in the back, and then Max Shield carries it the rest of the way or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say, as a color hold, it's pretty interesting to see it done as white.
Sure, yeah, and I don't think it is in the comic. It might be yellow, because I don't quite remember how it is in Born Again, but like that jumped out at me a lot. And then it's interesting to see clearly McFarlane liked that approach, you know, because he uses it a couple of times.
Yeah, I like it. There'll be a couple of instances where I think he's lifting a Miller Daredevil.
Oh yeah, we'll get there. Certainly when we get our guys on these tripwires, huh? And the story is like this guy, he's making a public spectacle, and Daredevil's being a narc.
Yeah, it's a little bit, like I say, this story is very convoluted.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I could sum this one up easily for the audience at home. Some of these background shots do start to feel a little McFarlane. Some of the cityscapes.
Absolutely. And you see right here, like, the ambition. It's there, dude. Like, doing a 3-point perspective, dense cityscape. I do think there's something about it that flattens out the image. It doesn't, like, you don't really get so much a sense of depth as you know, just better cartoonists would be able to convey. But you certainly get it with you know, some of this other stuff.
Yeah, the problem with this one, maybe in terms of depth, you'll see like one variation in color for this corner building.
Right.
Having it all be flat gray, you know, you're not getting black in the alleys or anything. Like, there's really no value, you know, just some lines there for a background pattern.
And some of these compositions are Miller-ish. Like even this one. I think that's Miller-ish.
This is the one that I thought was a Miller Daredevil I saw somewhere. This, on the other hand, that is a very McFarlane-esque face to me.
It is. And this conveys great depth. It's so fun to see, man. It's Uncle Todd still figuring out the anatomy, just kind of he knows where the muscles are. He's trying to figure out how to integrate it into a more subtle looking figure.
I think that there's some good stuff in there.
Mm-hmm.
Daredevil rolling through that DeLuca effect, I think there's some really good ones. That first pose is one I don't recognize, and him flipping kind of 3/4 upside down, I think, is a pretty good figure.
Yeah, what I would say is, like, don't have this leg be parallel with this one just to create that feeling of motion. and then all but fucking hangs the guy by his neck.
You know what? That dude's probably dead.
But yeah, it doesn't...
Because it looks like that's a snap.
Yeah, he's internally decapitated.
Ooh, this is kind of a strange one. These two faces and
it's lovemaking, man. It's lovemaking, dude. We seen Kirsten Dunst and Tobey Maguire pull that rap.
This one looks like a Miller Daredevil to me.
It does. And the stiffness of it makes it feel like he's just copying something.
Even the dagger hand feels very much like a Miller I've seen before.
Right. This poor foot is getting away from him.
Yeah. This guy has something. What Daredevil says the reason he's after this dude is because there's some device he's using that is causing like vibrations and like bricks and stuff are coming loose in buildings, which pretty weird.
Yeah.
It's so funny to see McFarlane with some of this stuff because I feel like he'll get there with this. This isn't quite it yet.
Right.
But you can see him like moving in a direction that we're going to celebrate before too long.
And if this is an inventory job, it might have been a requirement to get this in fast.
It's possible.
You know, like what does he say, man? Always say yes. Always say yes and then figure it out in the end.
Oh, you know what? These kids make me laugh a lot. One of the things early on, so again, like we're just adding stuff to this story. It feels like this is 2 inventory stories that fell on the floor and we just put the pages together. And so we're back to the kids. And now this kid's daredeviling off of the rooftops on his skateboard and telling Daredevil that he learned it from Daredevil. But earlier, whenever he's like, give the money back, what were you going to do with it? And the one dude said, buy drugs.
Yeah, totally.
And I can't tell how old they are. Like, some of them look like maybe they had too much caffeine as a kid and it stunted their growth and they're really like 28.
Yeah, good note on the drugs thing because that was pretty funny.
And there's also a dark implication where Daredevil was like, it's Christmas. Shouldn't you kids be at home? And they're like... Yeah, no. Dad's drunk.
And then it becomes like, well, shit, maybe you guys should keep that money.
Seriously, or maybe Daredevil should go help out at home.
Right.
Or we'll just play it for laughs.
And here goes a completely, like, different story almost, man. Like, the Empire State Building sequence or whatever this building is. And a lot happens within 2 pages. Like, this guy's running around being a schmuck. And then, all of a sudden, he's, like, bound. Do we just assume that that's Daredevil does something in between the page turns?
No, he says, how did you lash yourself? Daredevil says to the guy strung himself up.
So weird.
It's so bizarre. I don't understand this at all.
And he gets struck by lightning?
Yes, big time. That or Dazzler.
And then... we go back to Karen Page, you know, the former OnlyFans chick, and she keeps bad company when it comes to friends because she's kind of doing her own kind of sulking, and the first words out of her friend's mouth, well, maybe Matt's just cheating on you.
Right, and in the same panel, by the way, Hilda, what are you doing? How could you? She just shot up? Is that what we're
Merry
getting
Christmas,
there?
man. She was in that bathroom, dude, with the horse. She's probably pulling Karen Page's old stash.
What is happening in this story? It's almost like the grab bag of like, what are all the sad sack things you could put into a Christmas story? We got a junkie, we got the drunk dad at home, these poor kids out on their own, and then some guy gets electrocuted. What is going on here, Ed? And is Todd still sure he wants to draw comics for Marvel?
Oh, I know.
Roy Thomas will give him his job back, probably.
Yeah, man. You know, it's probably a little bit of that Frank Miller stuff, like where he's like, dude, I get to draw Daredevil. Like, there's some of that stink on it. We have the U.S. Postal Statement here, and it has some information on the circulation of DD. All told, I think we're about 316,000 copies.
That is correct. That's the average number of copies during the preceding 12 months. That's not that high for a lot of newsstand distro.
Right, and they get into that where how many, like, what's the sell through? It is like 183,000. So you're still in that space of, you know, almost half of that. Certainly over 100,000 of those books get recycled, get pulped.
That's strange. I
And
wonder what the duration is, because like they end a little bit higher. They have like the most recent issue of the filing, and they have the average, and the average is low, but the most recent one's high, which might be those born again issues.
Yeah, totally. I always love seeing this.
Yeah, me too.
It's a good clue in, and it gives you information like how many people are subscribed, like through the mail. Almost 7,000.
It's always the subscription number is so much lower than I used to think. I used to
I know,
think that
right?
was a good. Yeah, like I always assumed a lot of people subscribe, and it's a very low number. Usually.
Yeah, but I bet you that could pay everything, maybe. All the expenses on the issue. I bet.
It astounds me like how many issues, over 100,000, basically go unsold.
It's very inefficient.
Yeah, very inefficient.
Very expensive.
And then you wonder, like, where do most of those end up? Because those are not. I think a lot of them aren't even distributed. Where do they end up? Like you hear those stories about getting boxes of Conan #1s and from a warehouse that they brag they didn't have to lock. So, yeah, that's these are sometimes more interesting than the stories.
Yeah, and I think that would be the case in this instance. But
it's a bizarre story.
Fun to look at that proto early McFarlane artwork.
Yeah, definitely.
And I do have a bunch of those unsold gimmicked comics, and those are the ones where the top piece is cut off, because like that's what would be turned in for the refund. Paper too expensive to be shipping it all back to us, man. That's an expense, but you could send those back and get your money back. And the retailers, the newsstand, they would make money twice. They would sell those comics for a nickel or something. And
yeah,
then,
and I've got some of those.
And they would get their initial nut back, or at least a percentage back.
I have bought those coverless books based on like the splash page is now your cover.
Yeah,
and they're so many of those were gorgeous, and it's like that's just gone. Like most Marvel comics don't even have that splash page.
Yeah, I mean, you could imagine that.
I guess they don't have the newsstand sales either. But
and the newsstand, makes sense that all shook out that way, so they don't technically have to look that way, but. It was a nice thing, man. 2 covers to every comic book, and a great way to kind of jump you into a pretty fresh story. There you have it, man. We just looked at one of the last forgotten, one of the last forgotten Todd McFarlane Marvel comics. Shouts to David Cho for re-hipping us to this one.
Yeah, and 4 years later, he sells 3 million copies of Spider-Man #1.
Amazing. Good to go?
Yep.
Going to look at Gen 13 #1 from the miniseries. We did issue 1 from the regular series, and that did well for us, almost 20,000. You know what I saw that
such a popular book, Gen 13.
Yeah, exactly, and that's sort of like the move. That one Wally Wood book that you presented us, that is like the art. Oh yeah, it's cool.
I didn't know there were different covers on this.
Maybe mine's a second printing. Yeah, mine's a second print.
Oh wow, I didn't know there was a second printing either. Fascinating.
But we have this, the Wally Wood art exhibition book, like the Ditko one, the hardcover.
Oh yeah.
Like that did like 40,000 for us this past year. Did real good.
That makes sense because there's a Wally Wood porn book video that's really high. It might be our second highest, so it might be a lead into that.
I don't know, man. I don't know, because we did other Wally Wood stuff that like shit the bed, 8,000, stuff like that. And that was one of our big, because like we didn't have any 6-figure videos in 2023. So we got
Was that our #1?
It wasn't our #1. Brian Ballin ruled the roost, man. He had about 3 high videos, because like we had the artist edition video with him, we had the Killing Joke video, maybe one other thing. I forget. Like the top stuff, I think, was the Wally Wood porn one, just from the Vesta. You know how that just like has its own life. But that other Wally Wood was pretty high, which is pretty cool.
I remember I have to look at that, see what the title is or the thumbnail, see if there's something there that's a giveaway to why that one worked and another Wally Wood video didn't. So weird.
Yeah.
All right.
Good to go?
Ready?
Yes, sir. Welcome to your favorite YouTube channel, Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Ed Piskor.
I'm Jim Rugg.
Gen 13 #1 from the limited series is under the microscope today. We got to let you guys know that Cartoonist Kayfabe is a daily YouTube channel with more than 1,600 videos at your disposal. we might have talked about your favorite comics. So go on the front page of the YouTube channel, hit the magnifying glass, and search for your favorite comics. Check out those episodes. One of the things that we did talk about certainly was Gen 13 issue 1 of the regular series. Make sure you check out that vid. We are supported in part by the Patreon, and the King Kayfabers on the Patreon get access to all of our videos before anybody else. They're hanging out with us in a live stream recording session, and they get to scoop up the comics before anybody else when we talk about them. Without further ado, what you're looking at, man, is the covers to Gen 13 #1. Jimmy has the first printing right here. And the one that we'll be flipping through is my printing, the second printing. Whenever Gen 13 comes out, I'm just kind of discovering comic shops. That's around when I get my first Wizard magazine and all that. I'm strictly like a Toys R Us, Kmart, Piggly Wiggly new comic book buyer, flea market comic book buyer. So when I get my first Wizard, opens up this idea of like a new world of comics, and Gen 13 was a hot property, but it was so hot that wasn't able to get a first printing. These were pretty expensive.
I was still getting stuff from the flea market, and I bought this comic, and for some reason my dad must have been working or something, because usually that's who I'd go to the flea market with. I drove myself, flipped the car over on the way home, hit a patch of ice, ended up on the roof.
Damn.
But the comic's still in good shape.
And so are you, man. I'm glad for that. So let's jump right into things. And you know what? I feel like this cover, it makes sense. This cover feels like it's drawn much later. Like he's got like a more solid grasp on the figures, I think, and sort of their attitudes and stuff.
It's very interesting to me seeing early J. Scott Campbell here. I did not remember this comic well, haven't looked at it in many years.
Sure. And
enjoyed going back through it. And there's awkwardness, but there's also some really good stuff that I just did not... You know, like I would say her mouth, I find awkward. Mm-hmm. And in a lot of ways, that's what kind of logged into my brain. But overall, like, I think it's pretty strong.
Yeah, not bad. Like, I think, this is probably his worst comic that he's drawn for things like that. Because you look at that mouth, and I look at that little vestigial arm that is up there and things. But I also think that this might be Brandon Choi's best comic. Honest to goodness, the luckiest man in comics, Brandon Choi, little grade school friend of Jim Lee. What makes it good is that he actually introduces a goal. He introduces something important, and he introduces kind of two kind of warring factions that both want that thing, and that thing being the Gen 13 kids. So he builds in some real conflict. What's the conflict of every other fucking Brandon Choi comic? World domination or something like that? Some corny nonsense. Not like this ain't nonsense, but at least it's clear. At least we understand it.
It's funny, this is just the dad running from the government, the evil government, and just ripped. Just giant.
Can't draw bad, like, unfit dudes. Like, there'll be a fat person in here, and the way he draws fat people is the way Art Adams draws fat people, and he can't do it good either.
There's a lot of Art Adams on display here. I think some of the background stuff is very Art Adamsy here.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I was thinking that way when I first encountered this. In 1994, like that wasn't obvious to me. Like, to me, it was all, this is part of the Jim Lee studio.
Right.
So this is a Jim Lee knockoff, and it's like, there's a lot of Art Adams here in hindsight.
Yeah, it's true, man. The way he builds the sort of anatomical stuff that he's choosing. And very clearly, we see that that's a young Fairchild. So this is her brother, her dad, her family. And I guess they're like Gen 11 is their deal.
Wouldn't it be 12?
I think, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, they're still active because he flashed his eye.
Right.
A la Cable. And one of them exploded.
Yeah, dude. And check that, like, straight up pillin' Dad's cap,
yes.
man.
That is a telling shadow, because then we see the blood splattering on the little kid's face.
The pop culture stuff is something that J. Scott Campbell would bring into. He would add a little bit of fun to those Wildstorm books, because they were all just, every single other book was just this, and J. Scott Campbell's like bringing in some fun shit, man.
That's pretty impressive, and I see that, and I think, like, it's a shame we didn't get a real G.I. Joe run out of him.
That's true.
Because I think that's what he's pulling from there. I feel like that's a book that he would have enjoyed doing. And
Yeah, good call. So now we're back in present day, 1994. Let's teach people about tangents, Jimmy. Because there's actually... So here's where the second one is. So it's this big image of Fairchild where her leg goes straight down, right in tandem with the back, with the school building right there, where the lines touch. All you have to do is bring that hip over a little bit more.
Yeah, that's an easy one to change. Tangents, for anybody at home that doesn't know, it's whenever one line of, say, a building runs into something else. Often it happens across panels, which can be really confusing because your eye just goes naturally, then follows that line. For it to be straight edge of a building, straight edge of a hip, it feels like something got lost there somewhere.
Yeah, totally. And really, it's up to Alex Gardner to see that, to notice that, and to fix that.
I'm going to give it to everybody. If this art passed through your hands, you should have called that one out.
Oh, totally.
Whoever you are, colorist, penciler, inker, editor.
Well, who has the
anybody.
power to do something? Because the first person that's going to see anything is the inker. So he needs to fix that. Also, this is a tangent. It's a backpack with the bottom of the clouds. So we have two straight edges, man. It creates like a new panel almost.
That's funny. And part of the reason we call attention to this, editors will call this out on you. Like, this is a real thing that people watch for within the industry. So this panel, pretty impressed, reminds me of some of the Art Adams stuff.
Absolutely.
That I think we've looked at on here, but like the detail of like a little room or setting or apartment really reminds me of Art Adams there. And hey man, I commend him. Draw a detailed background. Go for it.
Now, makers, don't ever do this where you have the character from your fifth panel bleed into the final panel on the page. It makes for an awkward reading experience. And you shouldn't really be pointing to the last panel if we still have several panels to go.
Might be the smallest ankle I've ever seen. That's a tiny, tiny ankle.
True.
Measure that one at home if you don't believe me. One great other detail, you can see the line in the room. There's characteristics based on the background
Absolutely.
of the dorm room for these two characters.
Yeah, you got the messy, like, you know, this chick would be me in my dorm room, where I would take up the most space and be the messiest, and then, you know, just give like a little piece to, like, you know, whoever else is there.
She's so organized. I like all these characters. Like everybody that's hanging out on the college campus, I'm down with.
Once again, they are built in a Art Adams kind of fashion, the way he would do it. And then there would be like little inside jokes, butt rash instead of backlash. You wonder, is that what Brett Booth looks like?
It'd be great if it was like borderline like out of control with the studio guys. Cutting promos on each other, background art.
Just little promos. So there are some, CIA agents who are looking for young Fairchild.
Show up in the middle of the night, and she's been applying for internships. So the timing's a little bit weird to her, but otherwise, sure.
We got Lynch reintroduced, man. We remember him from Darker Image #1.
All right, so part of the full moon zine here, but we also have the Cathedral of Learning completely covered in word balloons. Are you pissed if you're the artist and you're like, man, I had to reference that building, and now you're just covering it up?
I was going to ask you that exact question, Jimmy. That exact question, because that's a lot of drawing that is getting covered up there, man. Of boring, hard-to-draw stuff.
Right. Yeah, you put in some time. If you knew that the word balloons were going to go there, you could have just drawn nothing. Just a black obelisk.
Is this chick the bad lady?
I assume she's bad, right? She's hanging out with Lynch. And...
Well, Lynch is a good guy.
Is Lynch a good guy?
Yeah, he's like their Professor X.
Well, then I guess she's a bad
series.
guy.
You know what it is? I think as you read, like, he thinks he's involved in something that it's not. You know, the organization is more nefarious than he was led to believe.
There is some strange going-ons with Lynch's body there on the left side. He's a very, very tall man with very, very small feet.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on. That face is built fully Art Adams-ish. Take a look at like the era of Art Adams when he was doing that Creature from the Black Lagoon. Like the faces look just like that. But then there'll be these other faces where I think that, like, you know, Jim Lee is exercising some authority.
That's probably true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. There's probably a few examples here where Jim Lee's hand is somewhat on these pages. Wouldn't shock me if maybe some of it's here.
Sure. I think Akira's an influence on this series, like because you have these guys with the psi powers and their kids, and it's a latent power. Certainly, sort of X-Men inspired stuff. Now this is some baddie fucking weird shit, and everything I said nice about Brandon Choi, I'll take away with this page here, where this like implied incestual shit, where she's like making like big dick jokes or something to her brother, or like maybe we're not really brother and sister.
Yeah, it's pretty odd. It's pretty odd. That's a strange page. She has a Chippendale in the gym with her.
Right.
That dude has one foot that happens to be like sharing her boot.
Right. He's not given much to work with, J. Scott Campbell, so he's doing what he can to try to like kind of make it interesting, but it's still fairly boring.
Yeah, there are some cool choices though. Like this is kind of a challenging pose. It's that 3D like looking down. I used to try this all the time because guys would do that. Like
Sure.
Rose Portacia would do this in some of his X books, and
Absolutely.
I'd just be like, it looks cool, but I could never quite make it work. But if you look closely, these security cameras, they're going back in perspective, which I think is a pretty neat choice. It's very subtle. Maybe it's too subtle because I didn't notice it before. But I feel like that's at least a guy thinking
Right.
about what he's putting down in these pages.
Yeah, so when you're a kid learning this, man, you always gotta like drawing one leg far shorter than the other just feels wrong.
It's hard. Yeah.
This is the fat lady that Jeffrey draws that looks super odd, but there was that one. Yeah, that's better. That's a better drawing.
It's very much like the Blob.
It is. And in the New Mutants annual, there's like one character that becomes real big and fat, and the way Art Adams draws her, it looks more muscular. Or that's a brawny, muscular chick.
I wonder if this is a reference space because the curve of the wall is really impressive. I think that'd be tough to draw for somebody new, and I feel like that could be coming from something.
Totally. And I think about this, like, so you're going to take her out of her element and put her in this scenario. Why not give, like, the least bit of creature comforts? Make it just look like kind of like a regular dorm or something. Why's it got to look like the alien spaceship? And then just this, like, nondescript, like a Howlin' Wolf.
I'd like to see the script with that panel.
Now we introduce our other Gen guys. Is this where Fairchild is like feeling sick? No, not yet.
Not yet.
That comes later.
It's like a double-sized issue, this first one. There's a lot of stuff in here. A lot of pages.
Grunge getting chased by the local security guys.
Pretty odd anatomy on Grunge in that pose.
Yeah, it's kind of an amputee.
Right.
And then the way the characters are kind of grabbing his outfit, it looks like it's coming straight down and not in the back. So it's just like a little tiny guy he's running from. And if there was like an 11-inch guy pulling on your clothes, you probably would run also. The foreshortening on this arm is very ambitious, and I don't know that he kind of really pulls it off.
I also wonder if this is something that would work better as a page turn.
Right.
Like something, we don't see them run into each other. We see the aftermath, but it feels like we're missing something there.
And now that we start to get more of the girls and stuff, you see how he builds his female faces, and it'll change. Like by the time that the first miniseries comes, he draws the eyes way different, and it's more that classic, like what we think of when you think of J. Scott Campbell, more manga-ish maybe.
I kind of wonder what Jim Lee, if that's who decided J. Scott Campbell would take this series, like what he saw in him versus Brett Booth or Scott Clark or who, whatever other guy was in the bullpen. Why this dude?
Right.
And I wonder if it's just because he was young, because he was really young, I think, whenever he takes on this book. I wonder if he's like, it's a teenage book, let's get our youngest guy on it.
Right. See, this is like some of that stuff where, like, big head, super tiny body. Mm-hmm. But this is another piece that you would never get from those, like, Wildstorm books, where you have the least bit of personality in your characters doing some bit of business, a little bit of acting, doing something more than just grimacing, being sullen, angry, or ready to fight. Right.
I like Fairchild, pre-muscles, struggling to lift weights, kicking her feet. There's good stuff here, you know, like there's implied animation in that.
And when you get things like this, I mean, it's character. So you have Burnout, I guess his name is a little ponderous.
That's not Iron Man relaunch David Banner.
Right. Yeah, those 90s haircuts, huh? And then, you know, you got Free Fall kind of just fucking off.
She's a free spirit, man.
There's a Jim Lee piece. Was this Deathmate Black or no?
I think it was ad art. I don't know about Deathmate Black, maybe.
Okay.
But I feel like this image was definitely ad art for this series.
And you see what Jim Lee's contribution is. It just kind of takes all the fun out of it. You know, it looks like just another one of those Wildstorm books, another one of those studio books. It has no personality to it. Doesn't look much different than Stormwatch or any of those other books. Could be Team 7.
How about this ad?
Yeah.
I bought those when they were coming out. I was really gung-ho, man. Chris Claremont and Jim Lee, let's do it.
Me too, man. I got the first 4, and then I picked it up again when they do their little bit. This character is the character that Chris Claremont is talking about when he's potentially going to be a part of Image from the beginning. I think it's like, not Swordsman, but something... Huntsman, yeah, that's
It's in that Amazing Heroes, I want to say issue 198, but it's like the big Image, like, everybody talks about what they're doing, and Claremont talks about him in there.
Yeah, and Willis was going to be the drawer.
Yeah.
Devoting some issues to that.
Very generic.
Totally.
I mean, look at that. That's the least interesting looking costume dude you could find.
Absolutely. Oh,
Clear Mountain.
Yeah, there it is, man.
I never noticed that before.
Me neither. Got our girl just disrespecting the control unit with her boy toys.
See, I interpreted that as Quentin Tarantino starting to hit. Let's put some feet out there.
And let's go back to Fairchild. She needs a Midol or something. Getting a little woozy, getting a little sick. Needs to find the infirmary. And as she exits, you know, very classic sort of superhero moment, right? She exits the door, and she doesn't know her strength. That she's really prying apart, you know, a very tight door frame or whatever. Leaves a handprint.
I think that's pretty well done, because that's a hard thing, you know.
Yeah,
I wouldn't. That's a tough one to draw and make look kind of cool, and I think that she does a good job there. Another tangent here between hair and door on that one.
Right. She's the consoles and stuff. Starts hitting buttons. Down comes Grunge, who's kind of like leaving his quarters a little early when he shouldn't be. Got the fuzzy Bigfoot boots on.
Another example
slippies.
of her strength that's starting to manifest. She backs up and ends up breaking this alarm button.
How convenient.
In Free
Free
Fall, smoking cigarettes.
Yeah, dude, that's a big kind of character trope. That's her personality. She smokes cigarettes. And you see this dude show up with the X on the face, man, because this was going to be called Gen X. Mm-hmm. Before Marvel was like, oh, no, you know what, man? We got this comic Generation X. You're going to create confusion. We just won a case against Jim Shooter.
And against your boy Liefeld.
Right.
We own X. X is our letter.
Yep.
I like the choice of Grunge wearing those where the Wild Things Are slippers.
Totally. I had those boots, those slippers when I was a kid.
I think that's a fun detail. And I think this book, you know, like you talk about fun being injected probably by J. Scott Campbell. I can't imagine those slippers or something that came out of Brandon Choi's typewriter.
Right. Fairchild gives the dude a quick lashing, and then what are we meant to believe here, Jimmy, that she becomes like 7 feet tall?
Giant women were hot. There's a strong fetish for oversized women.
Yes, there is.
And I mean giants, like, you know, not oversized like our cover model, but, you know, 15 feet tall and more.
Right.
Yeah, it's funny. It's strange.
And I think probably as a way to like end the first issue, it's a very weak moment to do it. I think you do it on like the punch and you send the guy flying. But that's a pretty, like, there's no suspense to it.
We're going to disagree on that one. I'm on board for this because it does invite something weird has happened. A physical transformation like the Hulk has taken place. What does that mean?
Here's the thing, that like, I'm not sold on the scale. Like, I'm not sold on the scale at all. Like, I see that her shit is getting ripped up, but there's also this energy thing that's happening. Could that just be what's ripping it? She just looks closer in the foreground, really.
Well, that's why you got to come back in 30 days. And yours second printing, you probably come back like next week.
I'm sure it was all out. It was all out by the time I found this.
I feel like it's wishful thinking too that the issue 2 came out 30 days later.
You would think that like maybe you just get them all done so that you can do that schedule.
It might have been all right too. This is a couple years in. Like that's something they I think improved.
And I think that was like a stipulation. That was like something that Diamond put on them. Like you get penalized or fined or something if you miss solicitations. So here are the OG Jim Lee sketches for the team. And this is something like enterprising makers out there and people who are interested in drawing comics, you got to kind of beware of this stuff. Like I actually just turned down a deal recently where they present to you, and I've done this like maybe 3, 4, 5 times, man, where you get presented an opportunity and nobody wants the stink of Marvel versus Jack Kirby on them anymore. So what these companies will do is they'll say like, we have a Bible of like what this comic is going to be. We have characters, we have sketches, we have all this stuff. Now this is far more than what I've been presented with ever, because usually I'm creating all the visuals as well. So Jim Lee's at least good on that, and we see that it's Gen X with like a mock logo and stuff. But this is all Jim Lee put together, presumably.
This is Jay Scott.
Yeah, this right here.
Yeah, that.
This right here. And this ain't what Jay Scott Campbell like brings so much personality and energy, and Jay Scott brings all the stuff that makes the comic cool and work. But he don't own it. This is Jim Lee's baby. This has got sold to DC Comics, and you know, who knows what Jay Scott Campbell got out of it. But it happens a lot, man. I just recently got turned down this thing where, as I talked with the guys who presented the deal, like they had the smallest germ of an idea, and as I was talking to them, I'm like, okay, so I'll be creating these characters, but if one of them hits, and let's say it becomes iconic, that's been known to happen, I have no equity in it. And they said, oh yeah, this would work for hire. I said, nah, man, go find some sucker to do it. And that's going to come out in Q24. I can't wait to see who puts that together. But I do think that it is something that you got to kind of like be hip to, because you know, I'm not saying that J. Scott Campbell deserves everything, but I think he put in a lot of legwork himself, a lot of sweat equity that I'm sure he didn't get out in the end when this sold and went to DC Comics or whatever. You don't read a Gen 13 comic because Joey Jerkoff drew it, you know? Like, he sowed the seeds.
This art's wild. This is really strange stuff.
It is, man. I think it's I think it's another Jim Lee piece.
Yeah, I think so too.
But it looks like he's playing with Jay Lee style.
Yeah, there's some stuff on there mark-wise that I haven't seen before, because some of the rendering on... Is that Warpath in the background? It looks... It's very consistent Jim Lee, but then whenever you get to like War Blade, that's bizarre, that light line.
Yeah, I mean, that's the Jay Lee line. With the hands and all that.
Yeah, kind of weird.
But they say it's Detonate Black, so I think that's a Turok.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
From the cover to black.
Look, we got... Did we get different ads?
Yeah, because mine's a later printing.
Yeah.
So I have the Wetworks ad, which...
If you go back to the Indicia in the very front, what's your date?
June 94.
Okay, this is February 94. Wonder if they're gearing up for the launch of the ongoing series, and it's like, let's cash in, we can sell more of these.
Yeah, maybe, man, because I didn't get issue 2 and 3. I got the trade. So maybe, man. There it is, J. Scott Campbell, like you don't remember him.
Yeah, interesting series. I mean, It's funny too to think of how successful this series is. By going through the Wizards, we would see like what's selling, what's ranking.
Yeah.
And Gen 13 was like maybe the other Image hit.
It's
Once
true.
the dust settled from that initial round, Gen 13 was the one after Spawn that would often be the number 2 Image book in their top 300 list.
And he was recently in our coverage on Wizard. He was given that back page kind of profile thing to fill out. He cites Gen 13 3 from this miniseries, the one with Pitt, as being his most important comic in terms of like artistic development. That might be one we have to check out. That's the Pitt issue, which is there's some fun stuff in there.
Yeah, I don't remember details of that. I remember Pitt was in it, but I don't remember specific details about art or anything from that time.
I have the trade. Do you have the issues?
Yes.
Let's look at that in the future. You good to go?
Yep. What would be the biggest Jim Lee book?
Wildcats.
Well, I mean, this sold better than Wildcats after that initial drop.
I don't know that.
Yeah, it did.
After the initial drop?
Yeah.
Oh,
The
yeah,
first
yeah,
issues
sure.
Were
Yeah, that's-
gangsters.
yeah,
but like,
I mean,
once
what-
it became a series, like,
Sure,
it
yeah.
wasn't their hit.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So, I mean, what are we talking about?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. I think he gets.
Oh, you're talking about his studio.
Yeah, like his wing of Image.
Oh, yeah,
He gets
yeah,
credit
it's-
for like Authority and what's the other one that came out of there?
You see that piece that I sent you, man, that somebody sent to me? It was Mark Miller and Brian Hitch on Mark Miller's podcast, and them talking about like Warren Ellis, like they spun off
I think it's Stormwatch.
Stormwatch into Authority so that Brian Hitch didn't have to draw Scott Lobdell comics, because like Scott Lobdell was going to be the Stormwatch guy or something, and they kind of convinced Jim Lee like, let's do this other thing, Conspire, so that he doesn't have to draw this fucking jobber nonsense.
That's funny. That one, and I think I always lump Planetary in with that group too, but I don't know if that was actually like its own thing. It may have been its own thing.
Yeah, that, you know what that is? That's
I think
Warren.
they were released maybe around the same time as why in my head they're similar.
And it's Warren Ellis.
Yeah.
And Warren Ellis, if it's was it a Wildstorm?
That's what I can't remember.
Because if it was, it's just he bought equity by being a star. Because like I think that's what made his star shine, is fucking with Authority and Stormwatch and stuff.
There's a Stormwatch issue that he does, and Jim Lee draws it. It's near the end of the Stormwatch run, because he like went and killed like half those characters, Warren Ellis, and then
Right.
launched the other stuff. But there's an issue where Jim Lee does like a fill-in, and it might be an all splash page issue. Does that ring a bell?
No,
And Tom
don't fuck
Rainey
with any
drew
of
a
those.
bunch of those Stormwatches. I know people who swear by that run, and like I looked at it, but I was past that stuff at that point.
Yeah, I got some of the trades. You know, like that's how I have the Stormwatch. I mean the Authority trades and stuff. Because you know what it was? It was my art teacher at the Kubert School for my sequential art class. He was like, Planetary, Authority, like that's the shit. Like my teacher. So I'm like, you know, what is
People
the new?
love Planetary.
What is the new superhero comics that are worth the shit? And he said those, and I checked them out, and it was whatever. We just got this one, Jimmy, and then we got to do our commercials, and we're good.
Yeah, I'm sending a video to render. Give me 1 second.
Let me go pee real fast.
Remember your lapel mic.
Yeah, right.
Good news, everyone. My cat survived his second surgery. My vets do surgeries on Thursday, and so we had one in December and then one again today. Just such pains. It wasn't really for anything major, but you never know. Wow, you guys are cat lovers out there. Well, I appreciate it. You never know how these things are going to go. I think the Planetary might have been the last ongoing comic that I bought. As a series. And I think there was delay towards the end, and I'm not sure I ever read the final issue or two.
That's when
that
I just
used to be that completist mode,
chase.
where it's like, oh man, I'm 26 issues in.
Right.
Gotta land it.
With the Bill Griffith thing, dude, there is an image online. I used it for the how to make comics the Bill Griffith way, but I feel like that's still the image for the shoot, where he's holding up a Zippy magazine, and it's half his face. So it's like you see half his face and you see Zippy. I feel like that's the image to use for the shoot interview. We used it already, but so what? That was a while back. Good if you are.
Did you lock those?
I did. You could lock them again if you...
No.
Welcome to your favorite YouTube channel, Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Ed Piskor.
I'm Jim Rugg.
Lady Death #1 is under the microscope today. We are a daily YouTube channel. More than 1,600 videos at your disposal. We might have talked about your favorite comics. So give the channel a search. Go to the magnifying glass on the front page. Type in your favorite titles. Check out those episodes. We are in part... funded by the Patreon, and the King Kayfabers on our Patreon at the highest level. They get access to all the videos before anybody else. They're hanging out with us in a live stream recording session with us as we record these videos, and that becomes useful when we talk about something that everybody wants, and there are limited supplies on the aftermarket. It's the Kings who get access to those comics first. Without further ado, Jimmy, can we jump into Lady Death #1, Stephen Hughes and Brian Pulido?
We can. And I should preface this by saying this was my choice. So I'm going to fall on that Lady Death sword, depending on how this shakes out. I had never read this before. I recently picked this up for a bargain price, and it dominated the Wizard top 10, hottest comics for months of our coverage throughout probably 94, 95. And I figured, you know what? We've looked at a few of these Bad Girl comics. I like Stephen Hughes. Let's give this a look. I want more of Lady Death raining down death on everybody. Like spoiler, there's a lot of flashbacks setting her up in this first issue. I was hoping to see a little bit more carnage and chaos.
Right.
And it's not on full display here. That said, I think the Stephen Hughes art, good as expected. The coloring in this is really impressive to me, because in a time when people are going digital, this is like a marker color approach. Yeah. And I like that. Seeing something a little bit different from a 90s comic.
Agreed. It's very triggering color to look at, because I know that the original color probably looks different than this, and when you would make color Xeroxes at the laser copier at Kinko's back then,
yep,
it would be so bright and saturated. We just did a shoot interview with Mike Allred, and he said when Laura saw Blue Line colors come back from the printer, she literally cried.
Yeah.
And I think that was probably a little bit of what it was. You have to make an adjustment to the color if you want it to look a certain way, because it is not going to look the way you want it to in print. And I identify with this because essentially when you're laser printing, it's shooting light at the artwork, so it's so much more bright and saturated than what you're initially hoping for it to be. Stephen Hughes, man, dope. I have more Stephen Hughes comics than I realized when it comes to stuff like the Blue Comet wing of comics that he drew, where I think Tim Vidor's doing finishes over top of him or something. It's a interesting tandem. But looking at his work here, I think we're looking at rapidograph artwork or something. I don't know that he's using any kind of pens or brushes or anything. Just fine liners.
Yeah, I wouldn't say for sure rapidographs, but definitely some kind of markers.
Microns or something?
Uniballs even, maybe. It's hard to tell, but it does have that kind of mechanical pen line or felt tip line.
We have her origin story, man, so this is her now. And when it comes to the writing part of it, in my mind, it's she's talking, but she ain't talking to nobody. But why not just give her a little gremlin or something, so that it could at least, if we need to have this kind of exchange, who's she talking to? Are we breaking a fourth wall? She knows she's in a comic.
Yeah.
I like Polito, by the way, man.
Check out this little detail of like the energy bursts, the Kirby dots kind of coming out, and the middle skulls.
Yeah.
You know, like I like that kind of stuff. That's something we would see in things like Vigil's Faust.
Right.
We looked at Dawn recently, which would have been maybe around this time, give or take a year, and it had really interesting colors, marker colors. So I do like how these books look. You know, they're like I said, they don't look like a lot of other books. There were probably a lot that knocked them off, but they do have their own look, and that's one of my favorite parts.
Props to Polito for paying a good letterer to
Smart move.
to make the thing legible.
The other takeaway I have from this, because as we get to the end, it's kind of, I don't know that there's much to spoil. This is not a lot of story. It's basically the origin. Her father's a dick, and he's like a lord or something in this medieval times, and goes off to war because he's making deals with demons, and he's just killing his own guys by constantly going to war, killing the enemy, presumably, mostly sacrificing souls.
Kind of a Vlad the Impaler character.
Yeah,
there's
there
a
you go.
couple of splashes here that made me think of that Kelly Jones stuff that we were looking at recently.
But I believe she appeared first in the Evil Ernie
She
stuff.
did, yeah.
And there's reference to, I think, Cremator or another character later on, which is kind of like this universe-building element, and I kind of like that. I like that concept.
I'd like to get
For a
Polito,
book like this.
I'd like to get Polito on the hook and just get some of his meditations on becoming a self-publisher. What happened at Entity Comics, which is the initial publisher for Evil Ernie, that made you give it a go? You know, I mean, it was the perfect time to give it a go. I would say, man. I think there was still some distribution out there, and there was a speculator market, and you certainly benefited from Wizard magazine.
I was going to say, man, he used Wizard like his own PR company, so some smart stuff.
Great freaking drawing here on Hughes' part, man.
Almost I see little bits of McFarlaneisms in
Yeah, I
some
think
of this
so.
stuff too, with that noodly line.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think so.
The other part with this is, how does Polito get to publish a woman character named Death after Neil Gaiman and Sandman?
Right.
That's kind of amazing. I guess you can't trademark Death.
It's true. And he made her like the anti kind of soy boy fucking Neil Gaiman version, where he's like, you know what, big ass titties. This is a metal chick.
Yeah.
Like, you could have your goth stuff over there, man, but this is a metal chick. She's my cherry pie type chicks, man, with big ass teased up New Jersey hair. You remember those girls, man? You probably, maybe even your books have those girls that have that little mid part with that went real high to the sky.
Yes. And
Aquanet,
sprayed hard.
Straight
like
up.
if you touch this is
Crunchy.
yeah.
Crunchy. Big ass titties. These are the chicks that whenever Danzig comes to town, dude, and he's doing a show, like the 40-year-old strippers, man, from Pittsburgh, from cheerleaders, are hanging out on the side, and they look like her.
Good color, because look at the flashbacks before she becomes this versus her.
Yeah.
And her story really stands out. And how about this? Skipping rocks across water?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
I look at this and I'm like, this is Gorblimey Press, Barry Windsor Smith influence stuff on Stephen Hughes' part, I feel like. And it also feels like it could be ripped out of like any of those 80s black and white comics. If you divorce yourself from the color, the proportions and stuff, feels Eastman Laird-ish.
I bet you it would work in black and white too.
Yeah.
Like you can see that there are blacks spotted. There's a lot of like gray rendering. It probably would work. It probably would look good in black and white.
I think it would be more timeless in black and white. Evil Ernie is a more timeless comic than this.
Mm-hmm.
This feels dated to me.
It became such a personification, this bad girl movement of like 94, 95. And
Yeah.
I don't know if this is jumping on a trend, if this is contributing to the trend. I don't know who to give credit to, but that is such a time capsule in terms of like my comic upbringing. There was
Sure.
a time where this was the dominant thing.
Yeah, when I discovered Wizard magazine, this was already a thing, and there was like a whole wing of this, and I'm like, man, I just had no idea that these kind of comics existed. And this specific comic was very expensive. It's $30-$40, man.
It was number one for a long chunk of those wizards we were looking at.
Polito was a bad motherfucker, dude, because like he would be there for Pittsburgh Comic Con, probably maybe just the years when it was at its biggest, when like the Harveys and Eisners,
Late
and stuff.
90s?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was a time when we would go up there and stay for the weekend. We would get a hotel room. Like I would get my friend who was 21. We'd all get money together. We'd have to use him to get the room because they wouldn't like 15, and we would just sleep up there, eat up there, and there would be like 24-hour events, and what those really would be there was an anime room, and then it was like sci-fi horror movie room, and we'd pretty much just kick it between those, not sleep the whole weekend and just check out the weird movies and stuff. And Polito would come in and just chill. There'd be 15 dudes there, like watching these goofy horror movies, but it was like grassroots comics pimping.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And to this day, I still remember that, because it's not like he was speaking to a big old audience, but he comes in and is kicking it because, like, obviously the kids who are watching Time Warp or, any of these other Darkman or something might be down with some fucking Lady Death comics.
That's amazing that he was doing that. Great sky.
With the
clouds.
with the line art and the color.
Yeah, it both work for me.
Real good Vlad scene. See, this is after Bram Stoker Dracula.
It's pretty hard armor. All the spikes coming off of it and everything.
Yeah. But then what Stephen Hughes kind of does drop the ball on, it's the young artist thing where the stuff that he's not interested in, you could tell. Like, he doesn't give a fuck about this. Like, he wants to draw more of this, he wants to draw more of that. So there will be these pieces that kind of just
I also think that he could have gutters, which we'll talk about more probably on the next page. I like this piece, man. That's pretty badass looking.
Love it.
This also, like, if you're the dude drawing on your book cover, like skulls and all kind of cool shit, man, this is it. This is perfect for you. It has that noodling, doodling kind of quality that dude in the back of the class with his head down. They had that, they're just putting lines on paper, and this has that.
I do wonder how Hughes was at this time, because, like, the image that I have in my mind, he's a 40-year-old guy maybe. I don't even know if he got to be 40. He died very young, completely bald, had like those big glasses with like maybe a chain or like the little strap to kind of keep him up. But in my mind, he's kind of like an older dude.
The chain part on the glasses feels like an older man move.
Yeah.
I never met him or saw, like, I think I've seen pictures maybe in Wizard or something.
Exactly. That's where I would see those flicks. And truly, he's the man. Like when Stephen Hughes goes away, like, I'm not interested. I don't care. It's really like the sort of genius that he brings to the energy, and it really is about the rawness to me.
Yeah, I just love that these look different. Different than an Image book, different than a Marvel book. They have their own flavor.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing with the Polito writing, like when you get to this I don't know, Victorian or medieval stuff, or you bring religion into it, like all these books of this kind of energy lack that writing piece where, okay, well, you're taking us back to this time, but it's the most superficial, glancing glimpses of this stuff.
No blue skies on that previous page. So compliments to the colorist there. I think the colorist makes some good choices for the most part.
Some good storytelling here, dude. You got your Black Plague rats. You got a lady cleaning up some schmutz and then catches a bite with a close-up, right? Like, that makes perfect sense. You establish the vermin, establish the hand, establish the vermin and the hand.
It's a nice rain effect. Rain is one of those things that comics has a super long history of doing, and I love how, like, the windows are almost washed away, like there's light sources, but this is kind of, that works for me as an observed thing.
Mm-hmm.
You see a light off in the distance of rain coming down, and it's kind of blurry. It's out of focus. Yeah. It's not a square, perfect window shape.
Yeah, totally. And going straight down like that, no holding lines. Eisner comes to mind. Like, I wonder if that was an interest of Hughes.
Yeah, good stuff there. And again, nice transition between your purple blues outside to the inside. We've got a fire in the hearth and people dying of the plague.
Yeah, not bad color at all. And we're all given, even Hughes, man, given credit to where the light source is and trying to abide by that. So good on them for that.
Be curious to talk to, like, current artists and be like, hey, where's the light source in this scene?
Right.
I never hear anybody talk about that now. And when I was a kid, like, guys would talk about that whenever I was asking for advice on pages.
So we established that young, was her name Hope or something like that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, Hope. She was learning about the new sciences and stuff, and like the leeches sucking on you. That's old school. You gotta lance some wounds, and this is her lancing her old bubbas.
Another thing I would not want to draw.
but
it seems like it'd be hard.
Yeah, Yeah, sure.
Look, more of the skulls. This time in the mouth, the saliva that's between the teeth. of Lady
Interesting.
Death.
Yeah, that would have been lost on me. I wouldn't have noticed that if you wouldn't have pointed that out. See, Stephen Hughes, he does come from that 80s brand of artists that have like the equine face, Barry Windsor Smith inspired figure drawing, portrait drawings.
Barry Windsor Smith makes a lot of sense for a book like this.
Some more of that stuff. See, man, I would like to see this in black and white.
Yeah.
With no tones, no bullshit. Like, let me just see what Hughes is putting down on the page.
Yeah, I'd be very curious, like, how it goes from this kind of outside stuff, like an outside nighttime scene, to an inside with a light source.
It looks good. Like, I'm sure it communicates well. And and doing layers of depth, like, that could easily get muddy. Excuse me.
It's a much harder thing to do than one might expect. I wonder how this fits in with something like a Poison Elves. It's another one of these fantasy line art type series. Obviously black and white, but I do wonder, because I skipped all of that stuff as a reader back then.
Totally. Yeah, these would never show up really on the racks. Like, they would always be kind of like bought out before. Like, I'd never seen them in Phantom, like, where you could just pick them up and check them out. They were always kind of back issues. And
yeah, I now that you mention it too, because this would have been, I think, 94 is when this comes out, 93 or 94, and I was just getting access to a pretty good comic shop, but I wasn't interested in these kind of books.
Right.
And especially, like, you put on a gimmick cover, like, I'm not going to pay $4 or whatever this cost back then.
Right.
So I was unaware of these except for seeing them listed in Wizard.
great color approach here, leaving some white in the middle to give you that sort of like white hot focal point, doing some Kirby crackle in the colors, using 2 different markers to do so.
I can imagine if you showed up to like a pro with these pages, the advice would be don't ink yourself.
I think so.
Because I used to hear that from
Yeah.
people. And when I look at this, it's part of the charm of these pages for me now.
Right.
But it feels so... That's the piece. Because otherwise, like, the drawing's really impressive.
Mm-hmm.
He's solving some major problems in this artwork. And I actually like this kind of inking, but it was something that pros pushed back against.
Yeah, like you look at this piece right here, you could imagine that could be that Dreamweaver comic or John Tar.
Yeah.
Like that's John Tar level drawing right there. Like that face right there is a John Tar face. He's certainly way more accomplished and all of that, man. But it could also be another one of those bits where I ain't interested in drawing that right now. See, so both of those bits for sure.
So she's going to be burned at the stake and presumably come back as Lady Death? Maybe go to hell first. Maybe issue 2 she's in hell.
Got to make
making
some
deals.
pacts and stuff. And she didn't have to wish for a Chesty Morgan amount of breasts. That's
Chesty Morgan.
You know her?
I think I have a comic
Weapons.
book.
Yeah, shoots guns out of them.
That's so funny.
This is everybody's dream Jersey girl.
That's amazing. Look at the ornamental stuff on the sword.
Oh,
like
yeah.
even the case of the sword, just covered in that. And to me, that is something that Stephen Hughes must have been into, because you could draw just the case. You didn't have to make it that ornamental, and it looks cool.
Yeah, it's badass artwork, man. And he wasn't with us long. We looked at Evil Ernie, man, maybe in year 1 of Cartoonist Kayfabe. So give that a search. But fun to look at his stuff again. Pretty toothless comic.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what to expect from it. I wanted to see, like I say, Lady Death kicking some ass. And we don't really get that here. We get, I guess, setup of Origin. Origin's usually not my favorite part of most of these stories. But keep going, because let's see. I forget what else is in here. There's always some ads and other art and stuff.
Is this a John Cleary?
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
Mikey Holman is the artist. And look, he's even doing some anatomy stuff with markers.
There is, like the Chaos kind of newsletter promo thing here reminds me a lot of what we'd see from Mark Miller and like Miller World, 20 years later. So that's kind of neat to see the promo part of Brian Pulido's game. This is always, I think, a smart move when these publishers would have a bunch of their stuff. Like whatever it is they've got available, like you have to have those pages.
It's cool because I guess maybe he's is this a new miniseries or is he reprinting his Entity Comics or Eternity Comics miniseries?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm sure at some point Chaos printed those. But
Yeah.
I don't know, like, rights-wise and stuff, what they got out of here. And then seeing, like, the other books that they would do. Look at the knuckles on Rack and Pain.
Right, and that's a Dark Horse book that Polito is writing.
Oh, interesting.
So he's bringing in some income and applying it to his self-published stuff.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was a Dark Horse. It's kind of neat. And again, just
feels like a smart move.
License yourself.
That feels like a smart move. Do a calendar. That's something that you could that costs more money and takes less work. 12 drawings, fucking piece of cake, man.
And I wonder, okay, this is Orkin. I don't recognize that name. I wonder if that's another Chaos artist, because that would make sense too. Like we're gonna show off everybody's art and just push all of our talent. And this is your classic, the Polito pose, right?
The Polito pose. Totally, man.
I wonder a lot about this distro. So I've seen ads for these guys, these Outlaw Comic distro, and I think this person, I feel like this has come up in past episodes. The guy who was like behind this distributor, I think he may have passed, and then these books were like around for a little bit. I feel like that came up in past comments.
Glenn Hammonds is the name, but you got everybody here, man. Because you got your Everett Hartsoe with London Night Studios, got Ben Dunn Antarctic,
Boneyard Press,
Anubis. You know what that is, man? That's that Arachnid comic.
Mm-hmm.
Kamiko, which is interesting. Fanta, which is interesting because you would think that they wouldn't go so low key.
Cry for Dawn before Dawn breaks out.
Mola Hide Graphics, I think that's Drew Hayes' Poison Elves.
Oh yeah, interesting.
North Star, Silverwolf, Rebel Studios,
Silverwolf.
Yeah,
that's
dude.
amazing. Wow. Yeah, it's really interesting. I've seen versions of this ad elsewhere. So this was a distributor that was, pushing these kind of books, and hey, man, why not? There's definitely a market for it. Love this Lady Death logo.
Good logo.
It's very metallic.
Shouts to Jason Jensen on the color. I wonder what because like he has such a strong color sense. I wonder if he's a tattoo artist or.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
That would be a name for me to Google. One of the things I like to do a lot when I get like a black and white boom comic is to like Google the names, and with all this time that's passed, like what kind of career did this person develop for themselves? And very often they do. Patrick Owsley on the lettering didn't do a bad job.
Yeah, so that's here January 1994. That's pretty good. That's probably right before things start to plummet. So you get a nice big seller here and then just work your ass off.
I think that it's also a cautionary thing. Like, I'm sure Brian and Francisca Polito, I'm sure they're a nice couple and everything, man. But I always push back on working for husband and wife tandems, man.
Eclipse Comics.
Certainly, if it's a if there's like a tie-breaking vote, I'm out.
Yeah.
No tie-breaking votes, man.
Well, there's definitely some stories about other married couples that were publishing books.
Good to go?
Yes.
Let me say something if we're still recording. Oh well.
Do you want me to hit it?
We're recording. Okay, it's cool. One other thing that I do, because I'm looking at Lady Death, trademark, copyright, Brian Polito. I'm not seeing Steve Hughes here anywhere. I would hope that they take care of him, in his passing and stuff because we ain't buying it for Brian Polito. Brian, you're a nice dude. Would love to have you on a shoot interview, but it's Stephen Hughes that carries this thing. It's Stephen Hughes that's the real legacy. And this is another cautionary thing to me, is to get involved with Erzatz Stan Lee type people who could write 5 books a month, get 5 different sets of royalties or whatever, and the artist has to spend their entire month on the one project. There has to be some equitable thing arrangement there.
I will say this, because I know some writers who do creator-owned stuff, and they'll have like, how do you want this, Mr. Artist? And I know artists that are like, I want paid, and they push off the equity in favor of payment.
They're presented with the option.
Yeah, do you want a bunch of money up front? Do you want to have ownership? What do you want to do? And I don't think, without knowing how this went,
right?
I'll reserve judgment.
It will be a question that I had. Like, I do want to interview with him because he was, he made some bones, man. But Brian, you got that'll be a question that I have, man, and I would hope that there's the right answer.
Yeah, I'm curious. I don't know how Evil Ernie is set up. That would have been a book they had done years before this, and who knows? Polito got it from Eternity at least, so I don't know whether that was something they split or not. And that's one of those questions. Like, now is the time. Like, if you are an artist now making comics, this is a thing you need to make it the way you want it to be. Don't do these things without it if you're not happy with that deal.
And I will go so far as to say, like, have some hipness to what the writer is up to, man, because these guys that are throwing a bunch of spaghetti at the wall just to see what sticks, they get to have the best lives. They get to have the best lives. If you have 5 books out there, that's 5 opportunities to have a hit to your one as the artist. So be choosy, man, because like all these guys, they're not Alan Moore, right, who was doing Watchmen and Miracle Man and Swamp Thing at the same exact time. These dudes are splitting their energy with their elevator pitch comics, and they may do enough comics to have a hit where they're taken care of for the rest of their lives. But that doesn't mean that, the comic that you're doing with them is even much of a consideration.
It's true. One other piece with a book like this is you're also probably mortgaging your house as the publisher. So it is different, like I don't know what the terms are on this deal, but if you are a writer, artist, creator, whatever, like these are all things to get straight, get in writing, and make sure you're happy with them, with considerations of what happens if this thing ends up selling 2 million instead of 2,000. Make sure the contract works that way too.
Good stuff. Good. I'm glad we got that on the record, man. So here's your comic, and we just need to do commercial and the exit piece, Jimmy. I think my
Boy, between Gen 13 and Lady Death, that's January, February 1994, these 2 books.
Oh,
that is such a time period of my life.
Yeah, man.
Jeez. That's my junior year of high school, being a comic book nerd.
Is it really just junior?
Yeah. Yeah, because graduated spring 95, so...
I always forget
One
like
year later.
what junior and sophomore. I always forget which ones supersedes.
Grade 11.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was in 6th or 7th. Probably still didn't even have hair on the nutsack yet, dude.
It's so funny that we have crossover of book reading at that time.
Right, because like
I feel very underdeveloped.
I was a little boy,
occasionally.
and like I was such a little kid, man. I was still watching the X-Men cartoon. I was watching Power Rangers.
Do you lock these?
Should
I think we usually do.
Yeah, do it.
At least then their focus isn't coming in.
Oh, you know what? Take it off, because like we're way fucking off.
Oh yeah.
It's like we haven't done.
It always confuses me whenever like comments go like for 20 minutes without a comment.
Right.
Like there's still 25 people watching, but
Just making sure you're in the live chat, not the top chat. Because the top chat is prejudice. And if somebody doesn't say what they deem to be great, it doesn't get seen.
the algorithms.
I'm trying some new things with the algorithms on the socials and stuff with sliding out my strips. I'm trying to stagger it on Instagram like at 3 different times. So like do the proper Switchblade shorties like early, then I'll do mine, then I'll do like Kayfabe like hours later, like just to try to stagger it. But people have been telling me that like stuff that has words like it's getting pushed down in the algorithm, so like it's fucked up.
I don't even know how to. That's so weird.
And
it must be a thing
like
of engagement that they're conscious that the engagement's less or something.
which is like it's a reading, like they're sticky, like you know what I mean, like they're not going anywhere. In fact, they'll be with that more than they will another image because they'll just hit like and go away. But you know how I could tell that is 100% true is like when I add something, so I'll be on Switchblade, add it, and then go on a Cartoonist Kayfabe, don't even show up.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's literally getting pushed down. But I'm gonna keep fighting a good fight, see what happens. So for the commercial up front, we start with your books this week.
Okay.
And then so I'll handle that real quick. Hit it. Today's video is brought to you by the comic books that we make. On the stands right now, Street Angel Princess of Poverty and Street Angel Deadliest Girl Alive. Get both of these collections and you get all of Jimmy's Street Angel comics to date, including a comic that has never been published anywhere but Street Angel Princess of Poverty, so you get some new value there. Jimmy's been self-publishing. He has True Crime Funnies 1 out there. He has the Black and White zine, and he has the 1986 zine. Coming to you in May is the trade paperback of Hulk Grand Design. The Big Treasury book, it's been out of print. You might still find one or two in your local comic shop, but if you don't, make sure you pre-order the trade paperback. Get your hands on that thing. I've been doing daily comic strips. It's called Switchblade Shorties, and this is one of those strips. It's on all our social media. I have a webtoon account for that. I'll be doing videos on Kayfabe. It's on our Kayfabe Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Hip Hop Family Tree Omnibus, 500 plus pages of Hip Hop Family Tree with 150 pages of additional materials out there right now. Red Room Crypto Killers comes out on I think like the 14th or something. It's the last round of Red Room comics. It's the best round of Red Room comics. You could start here and check out the rest later, or just continue the trend. And the X-Men Grand Design Trilogy trade paperback is out there right now today, collecting all of my X-Men Grand Design works. Now that we are done paying the bills, let's go back to the video.
This hand's so good.
Yeah, thanks, man. It sort of just worked out by accident, too.
That shading and stuff, like, it's really...
Yeah, the 3D of the
Yeah.
darker spots. I was looking at Jack Davis for that, actually.
interesting. It's a good one. You ready?
Yep. Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the bell so that we can notify you when new videos are available. Man, I always forget how we do this. Here. Stop that for me, Jimmy. Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to you. Okay. Hit the bell.
Ready?
Yes, sir. Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the bell so that we can notify you when new videos are available. And make sure you subscribe. I'd like to hit 100K in 2024 in terms of our subscriber base. The videos are brought to you by a number of things, but the most important thing is that you support the books that we make. Right now, I've been doing. I'm starting daily comic strips. It's called Switchblade Shorties, and it's getting pretty crazy. So go on any of our social media, go on my Instagram, and you'll be able to see those comics. Some of the stuff that we have out in the wild right now. Hip Hop Family Tree Omnibus. This is the collection of all of my Hip Hop Family Tree comics and extra art that I've drawn. I've drawn some exclusive pages directly for this publication. It's going quick. Like, we don't have very many copies left. You guys have been supporting it in a big way. So if you're interested in it, scoop it up soon. Red Room Crypto Killers, my third trade paperback of Red Room comics, is out there within days as of this recording. It might be out on the stands right now. Support the comic. Murder on the Dark Web for fun and profit. It's like Black Mirror meets EC Comics, and each story is completely self-contained. So you don't have to have the baggage of the other ones. But if you support them all, I'll be happy. X-Men Grand Design Trilogy trade paperback is in stores now, collecting all of my X-Men Grand Design works. Some of that stuff is out of print, so this is your way to get all of my X-Men Grand Design inside of one handy-dandy, handsome collection. Jimmy, what do you have out there?
Street Angel Princess of Poverty is just out from Image Comics. This collects all of the Street Angel comics that are not in Street Angel Deadliest Girl Alive, detailing the super heroic day-to-day life of the homeless ninja on a skateboard. I've also been self-publishing quite a bit with True Crime Funnies, the Black and White zine, and the 1986 zine. These are available on my website, jimrugg.com, or on my Patreon, patreon.com/jimrugg, and the Hulk Grand Design, my contribution to the Grand Design mythos. This treasury size edition that I'm very proud of, sold out. So if you can get it at your comic shop, get it, because they are harder and harder to find. But there is a trade paperback like the X-Men Trilogy Grand Design coming out in May from Marvel. You can pre-order that one right now if you missed the Hulk Grand Design Treasury.
So there's some other ways to support the channel. We have a Patreon, and the King Kayfabers on the Patreon get access to all of our videos before anybody else. Mitigates the kayfabe effect. Very often we talk about some comics that are reasonably rare on the aftermarket, and they snap the comics up before anybody else has the opportunity to. There are some direct ways to support the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel, however. Jimmy, lay some of those ways out.
You can subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe e-newsletter at the links below this video. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts, merchandise, hats, mugs, stickers, and more at our spread shop. That link is also under this video.
There you have it, man. There's all the ways to support the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel directly and indirectly. Why don't you leave everybody with the final marching orders, Jimmy, and we'll be on our way.
Read more comics.
That was pretty quick for an ending. Like, did I miss something in there? I know I did some stuff a little bit less orthodox.
No, I think it was there.
Sorry, Kayfabers, if I just messed with the mic a bunch. I can airdrop this to you.
Ooh, hold on. I gotta get out of... Alright.
All right.
Sending it over here. I guess I'll take it here.
Yeah, so weird.
Did it come through?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't show. Like I would assume that it would show up as Jim Rugg's iPad.
Ken King asks, are we going to get a review for the new John Romita newspaper strips artist edition? It's huge and glorious. I was completely unaware this thing existed. Have you heard of this?
Is it a reprint? Like I know he has stuff.
I've seen his Amazing Spider-Man, but
Yeah.
this is for the newspaper strips, and I have not seen that.
Yeah, no, me neither. I'm not.
I
I'm
mean,
not
I haven't
gonna
even
get it.
heard of that.
Yeah, I'm not going to get that. But I did just get an update today about the Mazzucchelli.
Yeah.
Year one. Did
Somebody posted that
Did
too.
you have the pre-order?
A July 17th release date.
Yeah. And I think it was slated earlier, so they're pushing that back a little
Try
bit.
sending that again. I'm going to turn off my iPad, and hopefully it'll... Let me make sure that I don't have airplane mode on.
Let's turn this one off too.
All right, give this one a shot.
Silly.
It's crazy that there are so many artist editions now that it's like I don't even hear about them.
Yeah. Yeah, I was
I'd
doing
be
a little-
curious to look at that. The thing with all the artist editions is I wish I could look at, like there are some that, I don't know, I might fall in love with that Romita if I saw those and they're big, oversized, and I like his art, but I don't know that I'd pull a trigger on it. Like, I don't get excited when I think the Spider-Man newspaper strip.
Right, and it's like
I'd
so
really
late in
need
his
to
career
see
and
it.
stuff. But you know what? He gets so sharp, like his inking is so sharp. I'm sure it's so cool to look at.
Yeah, I bet it is, yeah. All right, man, I got those.
Both of them?
Yep.
Man, that was quick. Dude, it's so funny, dude. It was taking forever on the iPad.
Yeah, I don't know if I just got anxious and shut it off or what, but got him.
I'm working on... It's so weird because it's also still showing that it's in
Yeah, it
progress.
says it's still coming here, but I
Okay.
hit stop, so that should be it.
Okay, cool. I'm not sure if we're going to get a shoot interview guest for the next week. I'm working on Stan Sakai, but I haven't heard back from him. Got a real good one lined up, probably towards the end of this month, with two guys at once, not Eastman and Laird. Though in these winter times, man, maybe I should reach out to Eastman and Laird for next week.
Yeah, I wonder what they're up to.
Like Eastman is such a con guy, during the summertime and in the spring and all that. So like maybe he's home.
It's funny whenever you say it, I have a different connotation in my head.
Of the word con.
Yeah, like he's a con man, like he's doing something he shouldn't be
No,
doing.
no. Yeah, just convention.
Yeah, right. That's fun. So yeah, man. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. As
Yeah.
always.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know anything else.
Yeah, I'm sure. Jimmy's vids will probably show up tomorrow.
Probably tomorrow.
I'll try to get all of mine done today. So keep your eyes peeled, Jimmy. I would suggest that you make the Bill Griffith shoot the priority so that the Kayfabers
Yep.
can get eyes on that.
For sure.
And then yeah, that's all. We'll see you guys next Thursday.
Yeah. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Cheers, guys.